Your 360, you see you've got fire on the Charlie Bravo corner. And so the truck goes to the roof, they cut a hole. When you get to the unburned side and you're gonna make your attack, when you open that door up, that smoke starts to come out floor level. Okay, so let's imagine it's like the old days before hoods, and they tell you, hey, hold up, wait till they get the hole cut, because you can't push in under zero visibility under high heat. I know you big tough motor scooters can, but let's imagine you can't. Okay, and remember it's fuel, so we probably shouldn't. So you get up there and the truck crew cuts a 4x4 hole. You're gonna find out real quick, like the minute I saw this one out here on this prop, it's an inspection hole. I'm not a believer in four, I believe in big, and I'll explain it. They cut a 4x4 because that is the standard throughout the country. No matter who I talk to, where I go, I can almost bet money the answer I'm gonna get for the size hole is a 4x4. On the Texas State Civil Service exam, 39 years ago when I came in, it was the correct answer. It's the correct answer today. But nobody argues about fires have changed dramatically, but 4x4 is the standard. Now, when I came in, it was said that it was the minimum size hole on a residential fire. Minimum meaning smallest. That's not mine. Now, get the good-looking women out there. I lost all their concentration. Okay, let's get back to smoke being fuel. So we've never changed, but what has been lost is that nobody qualifies 4x4 hole as the smallest they cut. When I ask what size hole you in your head plan to go to the roof and cut, and if it's what y'all do, it's what we've been taught. I hope that's one reason you came here, so I can expand expand. I'm not knocking anybody that does it. It's what we were taught. Okay, so throughout the country, what everybody says is, when I ask what size hole, because they say a 4x4, they don't qualify it as the smallest, even though it can't be the smallest anymore unless that's all the roof you've got. And I hope I get to explain this, but let's imagine, remember where we're at on this pressurized structure. We're waiting at the door, smoke to the floor, high heat, waiting to get some ventilation. The truck cuts a hole, 4x4, they punch through, and we watch the smoke start to rise and fresh air start to fill that void. Before air packs, this is when we made our move. That's how you had to make your move before air packs, because that's the only way you breathe. So now you tell your firefighter, let's go, right? Now it's lifting the smoke. And so say we get a 3-foot airspace, and we crawl in and we go in and we turn the corner, we put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and the smoke leaves the structure. And we go out and we high five and we talk about, man, good hole, right? That's what we used to do. Good hole. Remember, smoke is fuel. It burns like gasoline. Today it's explosive. It doesn't light off like it did in the old days. It wasn't a slow thing that you had time to react to. It just happens. So we can go through the same scenario 100 times. And as long as you can push in and put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and you get there in time, and you put the fire out, it quits producing some heat and smoke, and the hole takes the rest of the smoke out of there. But here's where they say it makes it worse. Take that same exact situation. Holes cut, get 3 foot of airspace, you go in deep, except when you get back where you think the fire's at, you can't get there. Has anybody not been there? When you see it out here when you do your 360, but when you go interior for whatever reason, it's either a duplex, they got a dresser drawer, a couch, for whatever reason, you can't put the wet stuff on the red stuff. Now here's what happens. Fires grow exponentially. Anybody doubt that? Not today. So they grow exponentially. So now what have we done? We've gone in deep underneath the gasoline. I almost want to quit calling it smoke and just refer to it as gasoline. Nobody in this room would ever go in under that situation if I poured gas in this room, pushed it up, left you a 3 foot airspace, and asked you to go in with an ignition source, would they? Nobody would. But it's like honestly, it's like the old days have carried over, but it's no longer the old days. It's not. And so in this situation, when we can't put the wet stuff on the red stuff and make the 4x4 hole effective, it can instantly become totally ineffective, overwhelmed, and you'll recognize it. Anybody who's closest to Beaumont? Port Neches. Cody Schroeder, Beaumont, Texas, December 7, 2007, flashover. Yeah, talk to him about the conditions. Suddenly, unexpectedly, that's the way it is. Smoke pushes to the ground, and you can't count to 10, it's fixing to turn orange. And so what happens whenever they run these tests and they only cut 4x4 holes, absolutely ventilation makes the fires worse. Because what's the smoke missing to be orange? It's missing oxygen. Everybody, just about everybody, can run a barbecue pit, right? So we all know what we do when our fire starts to cool down, right? We give it what? Oxygen. And so what do we do when we cut a 4x4 hole that doesn't get all the fuel out of the structure? What happened? We loaded up with fuel, but it wouldn't ignite because it didn't have enough oxygen. It was fuel rich, but it needed oxygen. Now we raise it up, we put in oxygen down low, and then, you see, now is it making sense? It's the only way to say that ventilation makes a fire worse. It's only ineffective ventilation makes it worse. Because here's the deal. When you go up to the roof, and here I'll just tell you up front, every time I go to the roof, in my mind, I'm shooting for a 9-foot by 5-foot minimum hole. That's what I shoot for. When the butt pucker, can I say that? Does everybody here know what butt pucker means? Because I have offended some people. They didn't know. When you're scared and your butt puckers, it brands in your brain whatever you just did, don't do it again. The size of your ventilation hole is directly proportional to the butt pucker factor. Nobody's ever proven it wrong. So even though I go to the roof in my mind and having trained and drilled and eye-hand coordination and with my eyes closed, I'm thinking 9 by 5 foot. A lot of times it may be 7 foot by 3 foot. But we're going with the intent of cutting a 9 by 5 minimum. And so imagine same scenario, same house, except the truck crew goes to the roof, they cut a 9 by 5, they open it up, and now what happens to the fuel? It all leaves the structure. Here's the difference. It all leaves the structure. It goes up, it goes past the ceiling you punch through, and now think about now when you go in, the fuel isn't what lights off. Sure, the fire is going to now get, the fire is going to get oxygen and it's going to start burning better. But gasoline, when we light it, it doesn't just burn here. It burns throughout the entire, everywhere the vapors are. And that's what smoke is. And so when it lights off with ineffective ventilation, the entire structure becomes involved. When you get rid of the smoke, the fuel, and the fire starts burning hotter, you don't even know it. Do you? Unless you just don't put water on it. Actually, probably in our mind, it's better because it kind of clears up. It sucks more oxygen in. We get in now, we put the wet stuff on the red stuff. Does that mean I exceeded my time?
18715 Abiding Court, near West Hardy Road and Dead End, 373 Echo, Box 11.
So what they do is they run these tests, and their perception of what y'all's perception of the guys that go inside see things differently than people outside. When you're on the outside and you run temperature probes in and you say, okay, the fire's burning at 1200 degrees, and those guys went up there from Irving, they cut a big hole and they took the smoke out and fresh air went in, and now the fire's burning at 1500 degrees. It made the fire worse. Oh, hell no, it didn't make it worse, because we're not where it's 1500 degrees. We're down here where it's 200, 250. Oh my God, 400 unbearable. But anyway, we're down here and we're going to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and it's going to come up, it's going to go out, and things are going to get better. You're going to be able to get in there and find the victims, find the rest of the fire and put it out. But you have to get rid of the fuel. And that means, look here, let's go back. Today fires, nobody doubts this. Nobody doubts this. They say today, the stuff that burns today releases heat 3 to 4 times faster. And there's 4 times as much stuff in every house. But when my boys moved out of my house, I almost needed asset numbers to keep track of all their TVs and stuff. When I grew up, there was 1 TV, 1 couch, 1 recliner. Now we pack a house full of stuff that releases heat up to 4 times faster, and I've read some stuff says that it produces 500 times more smoke. I can't say I've seen that, but I could believe 5 times more smoke. So let's just go on simple numbers. 5 times more smoke, 4 times the heat release, and 4 times the amount of stuff. And throughout the country, we're still cutting the hole that's out there on the prop, 4x4. It's ineffective, and so continuously, if we do that and we don't get rid of the fuel and we have firefighters going in under those conditions, if anything keeps them from putting the wet stuff on the red stuff, we're going to have a bad outcome. You'll notice it. You'll hear windows break, firemen on fire come rolling out, air horns blowing. Do y'all blow air horns in Irving? Do you? Oh my God. I remember the first time I heard it, I thought somebody stepped on or left my boots on or said I was wearing them. I mean, I didn't know what air horns were in the old days, but fires didn't go bad like they do today. And so the fire service has got to transition, and I'm glad that NIST and UL have been doing studies. I've bought in that resetting a fire is a tool where I never in my life ever even considered it. It's a tool, certainly for those of you in Houston, I don't believe it's a tool we pull every single time. And in fact, last night I think resetting was a negative. But certainly on ventilation, and that's what this class is supposed to be about. I saw Kelly, there, Captain Kelly. That's what I'm supposed to be talking about, ventilation.
What are you talking about?
Rooftop safety. Oh my God, don't get me started on nozzles, because I have opinion. Okay, so does this not make sense to y'all, what I've talked about not getting rid of the fuel in the house, and then when they see this and the fire lights off, they realize this, the ventilation has made this possible because we've let air come in and we've loaded the house with fuel, but they don't understand that if you cut a big enough hole, all the fuel leaves. And then when it starts burning, it's only over here where it was already burning. Oh my God, I would love to be able to talk to you guys about pressurization for exposure protection. It works on kind of a larger, but that's where you pressurize an unburned area or an unburned building or an unburned apartment unit. Pressurize, don't vent. Just pressurize, and the reason you do that is to keep the smoke from migrating into it, because interior fire spread, our biggest enemy is smoke, fuel. I've kind of got off track here. I'm gonna make you make me come right back to fans, okay? Because I want to talk about fans. Okay, but pressurization, I keep trying to push it. I got too many non-believers, but it works. Think about apartment complexes. You pull up and you've got fire on the second floor of a 300-foot long apartment complex with a common attic, and you pull up and you have smoke pumping out 300 foot away. What is your enemy? Is it direct flame contact? Is it radiation? Is there as hell not conduction, right? It's convection. Because when that smoke, 300 foot of it, gets that air source and comes back to that ignition source, you have a multiple alarm fire like that, right? You don't have multiple alarm fires with 4 people. Oh my God, y'all just got to do it by yourself? Tough motor scooter, man. And so if we can pressurize where the smoke hasn't gotten, if we can pressurize before the fire gets there, then we keep the smoke from taking over that building. And here's the way it works. If this was an exposure and we have another building outside, or we have another room for that matter, say it's an apartment, and we just blow in, we want to expose the high spot first, because that's always the #1 place that you get extension. But pull ceiling, if it's a house, find the attic, pull down. The homeowners will love you if you don't tear up your ceiling. But you just blow in, you pressurize. If you are not able to stop the fire or slow it down, when it burns through wherever it is, that now becomes the vent hole. And so now where does all this pressure start moving to? It starts small and starts going back toward the fire. The smoke followed by heat, followed by fire, doesn't move into here. It buys you time. I've done it with incredible results on houses. I've done it, we had a huge 100-year-old church about a year and a half ago. The sanctuary had 30 foot of smoke banked down, 10 foot off the floor. We put 9 fans in it with no vent hole, and we pushed every bit of that smoke back through the voids where it came and back to the classrooms where the fire was at. The fire could not have overcome 9 fans. And one of the number one things, I found access to the drop ceiling, because any of y'all ever made a big church, you know, once it gets there, it's over with. You can't put it out. And we directed 1 fan there. So what did we do? We kept the smoke, which is the fuel, out. If it had gotten by the guys trying to get all the voids on the classrooms and gotten by them, it couldn't have just run over and took it over. So it's, I don't know if any of y'all do Facebook. I do Facebook, but I do it to try to help young guys. I can't see all of y'all. I've never been to Irving or Port Neches. I'd love to be able to come around and give all of y'all my opinions. I have a bunch. That's why there's very few Houston guys here. They've heard them and they don't like them. Let's talk about, okay, we talked about ventilation making fires worse. Okay, before UL and NIST ever started saying it, I had firefighters saying it with the fan. And I believe in the fan. I believe in cutting holes. I let the fire dictate to me what I'm going to do. When I pull up, the conditions dictate whether I'm going to the roof right away or whether I'm going inside, cranking a fan, and then going to the roof. Or I may not need to go to the roof at all. But here's what happens. When you get crews that open a door and that super pressurized black smoke comes out and they crank a fan, then they tell me they hate the fan because it makes their fires worse. Everybody know what a turbocharger is on a car? You know that thing that's like a fan that pushes oxygen into the fuel in your car to make it burn more effectively, efficiently? That fan we use in the fire service is absolutely no different. That black, super black pressurized smoke coming out, that's fuel. And when it comes out under pressure and you can't turn it, all you're going to do is light it off. I believe that's what happened to Cody Schroeder, if I'm not wrong. And so when they see the fan being used improperly, right away they condemn it as ventilation making the fires worse. It's not ventilation making the fires worse. It's firefighters not understanding what needs to be happening. We had a senior captain in Houston and an EO that missed the class about you had to have a vent hole before you crank the fan. And I kept hearing how fans were making all these fires on my side of town go bad on this other shift. But I used to be even more short-sighted than I am now, but I had less experience. And then I had this captain in a class with her EO, and I was talking about fans. And they gave me a scenario where a chief jumped their butt about cranking the fan, and so I had them play back everything they did. They never knew you had to have a vent hole. They just thought, man, we just crank a fan in every fire, things get better. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You bring that fire, when you overpressurize, you bring that fire right back to that fan. So what it is, when you hear this stuff about ventilation making fires worse, guys, it's only happening if we don't do our job right. So that is what I hope I'm here for today, to tell y'all how to get on a roof safe, how to operate on a roof, but I hope also I can talk a little bit about fans. I hope I can give y'all some information that maybe you haven't read out of a book. Everything I've got is here, and it's all based on experience. Not going to the academy, burning a friggin' 8x8 Connex box. Although I'll be darned if now in Houston, I've been bad-mouthing the Connex box for years. That I've only fought one Connex box fire in 39 years, and now in Houston they're building, we've got a 4-story, 4 boxes stacked on top, about 30 foot apart, and they're joining them. So now we're going to be fighting Connex boxes. So maybe the academy was ahead of my time, and they were smarter than me. Wouldn't be the first time.
This is around the corner of 46, right?
I'm sorry?
This is around the corner of 46.
Well, actually, the 4-story is right off of 45 and 25 Stillorm,
Okay.
Webster and Tierwester. Gonna be a hot motor scooter, I know that. It's the young guys sport, all that heat. Who's running this show?
I guess I am.
You are?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, well, you gotta keep me under control.
Yes.
Last time I exceeded my time limit. Does any of y'all have any questions now? Because last time I was supposed to talk, and then they were gonna have a question session. I just talked the whole time. I think the supper time, the beer time, I took it all. So do any of y'all have any questions or questions about what I talked about so far?
I got one.
Okay, I'm gonna get closer. So,
Deal, please. I mean to say I'll cover the deal. You talked about setting a fan and cutting a vent hole, going vertical. Is that what you were talking about?
No.
Okay, I can say we had some guys get in trouble doing that, and I
Okay.
was curious how you did that.
No, set the fan or cut a hole. I'm glad. Hey, please, if y'all have a question, I live off of questions. I made this whole class last night between runs and this morning, but I don't want to get into it. I wish y'all would ask questions because that stirs up things I might have forgot about. Do y'all understand what he asked about the fan and the hole? Let me tell you, first off, let me tell you, I'm not a real firefighter anymore. For the last 5 years, I've been safety 24 in the city of Houston. So I'm not a real firefighter. I just get to go around and watch real firefighters fight fire. Sir.
Come with an asterisk.
I'm sorry?
I bet it needs to come with an asterisk, because you're the only safety officer that's cut a hole for the safety of the crew inside, so, just a safety
Well,
officer.
I like to think of myself as an uncommon safety officer. I was interior last night. I'll be on a roof. I'll be inside. I wouldn't have taken the job if I had to follow the list of what safety officers do. Everything I do is in the name of safety. But number one thing, I believe ventilating makes a fire safer. Safer for firefighters, safer for civilians. But what being for the first time in my whole career outside, not all the time, I have gotten to see that we struggle on ventilation, we struggle on forcible entry, we struggle on water. We struggle in a lot of places. Now that, I don't know about y'all, but now we're doing this blue card. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. But let's talk about fans and holes. I see it. I don't believe in it. Let me explain it. Fan is it's a type of ventilation. It is pressurization. It's horizontal. Maybe it doesn't have to be horizontal, but it's pressurization. Vertical ventilation does not work off of pressurization, and it has to have air coming in to replace the smoke that's leaving. So here's what I see. I see crews combine the two, and what they end up doing is they shoot themselves in the foot. They cancel each other out. Because here's what they do. Let's imagine this is a 1,500 square foot house. We've got 4 rooms on this side, 4 rooms on that side, fire in the back kitchen, pressurized, filled everything in this house with smoke. Truck crew went to the roof, cut a 9x5, made me happy. 9x5, opened it up, cleared it out, and the chief calls for the fan. Truck says, hey, rooftop ventilation established. Chief calls for the fan. Fan blows in, and hey, if you're in this corridor right here, this flow path, that fan's going to move that smoke, and it's going to clear out, and everybody's going to say, wow, look how well that worked. What about these rooms? You know what happens? We're using pressurization, so we go to these rooms, and we don't open any windows because we're pressurizing. If we only did vertical ventilation, we would open those windows, would we not? When we got in there, hey, if the rooftop ventilation established, I crawl down this hallway, I turn in a room, 0 visibility floor to ceiling smoke, I'm going to go over to a window, I'm going to take the top of it out. What's going to happen is fresh air. Now, remember this. Let me back up here just a second. Smoke is fuel, right? And pressurized smoke is what we need to be concerned about. Pressurized smoke. Anywhere the smoke goes, the fire is going to follow. Remember that. So think about this. If I cut a hole and relieve the pressure and I open a window, which way is the smoke in that room going to go? If I've relieved the pressure. It's once the pressure is relieved, the smoke's not moving. There's our problem. There's nothing to replace it. It's dead air. It'll move till the pressure's been relieved, and there's nothing to replace the warm air in this room. We don't open the window and blow it out with the fan because we're trying to pressurize the hole. We don't open the window and let fresh air come in, which will push the smoke up, go across the ceiling out the vent hole, because we're using the fan. We're pressurizing. What we end up doing, if we do one or the other, we can clear these rooms out systematically as we do a search, shut the door back and either maintain pressurization or leave it open and let it clear out. But we combine the two and we end up, I watch them. I do 360s and I watch guys in zero visibility doing searches. Now here's the part that really bothers me. I watch their helmet lights up here doing searches. That's not how you do searches. If you got good visibility, it may be how you do searches. But in zero visibility, you don't do searches with a helmet light. And if you think a tick can find every victim, you should have been on my fire last night. Hands find victims. Victims are all found almost, I bet 99% of them are found from this level down, from the waist down. Victims don't levitate, they don't crawl up on shelves trying to get away from the fire. Victims try to get away from the fire by going the opposite direction of the fire. And if they pass out, gravity wins and takes over and brings them to the ground. But what your question is, the two, they drag out ventilation because they don't work in conjunction together. Because here is, let me try to think of how to, see, a good instructor would have a video right now. I'll be able to play a video and show you what I'm talking about. This room, once the hole is cut and the pressure comes out, and that's when fresh air starts coming in. When fresh air starts coming in, we've relieved the pressure. And there may still be some smoke coming out, but imagine initially, if you open that door, that smoke comes out 8 foot horizontally, under pressure, and by God, when it does, you better know, you better step to the side because it's fixing to turn orange. But we cut the hole, we relieved the pressure, but we didn't get rid of the smoke. Something's got to replace the smoke. Think about it. If we don't do anything and we just cut a hole and we never open any doors, that smoke will eventually go away. It'll eventually settle and go to the ground, settle on everything, but it's not going to do it fast. But to get it out, we have to replace it. So you open a window. You open a window, fresh air comes in, cool air comes in, goes to the floor, raises the smoke up. All I need to get a search done is here. Once I'm here, I can go back out of that room after I've done a search, shut the door. I'm not worried if somebody's worried about that oxygen feeding the fire. If I'm using a fan, I remember the first time a senior from 55's Captain Kelly's station tore my butt up. I was a captain and I went in a room to do a search. We're using PPV. I went in a room, zero visibility. I took my pickhead axe, I took the top of the window out, not the whole window, just the top. Instantly, air started coming in, PPV started pushing this dead air out. I get my search done. This senior captain tore my ass up. Don't you understand ventilation? We pressurize it. Yeah, I do understand ventilation. I need to get this stuff out of here. I'm not worried about, I need to get all of my searches done. Last night, it wasn't until we finally cranked the fan. I went interior and said I would coordinate ventilation because we didn't have a lot of belief in the fan under the conditions we had. When we cranked the fan within 10 seconds, we had clear visibility on the second floor. But you have to understand when it will and when it won't work. When we combine the two, it doesn't work. I just had a Houston firefighter that works in the other department too come to my office one day and was telling me about a big 2-story they made. And he was real excited. Good fire. And he's telling me the story and he said, yeah man, they cut a hole and then they crank the fan. And I said, man, I don't believe in that. I tried to explain what I was telling y'all, and he sat there for me, he said, man, Captain, he said, you know, it took forever for the smoke to get out of the rooms. That, no doubt, right here where all the action was, except the search, this cleared off quick. It did clear it off quicker. But what about those rooms? Those rooms where the victims are. He said it took forever to clear them out because they never did open a window. Either open the window and push it out, or open the window and let fresh air in. But the smoke's it's not going to just leave on its own. Now, I've had guys, hey, now I'm not a rocket scientist, so I could be wrong, but I've had guys say that the leader fan, do y'all have the leader fan? 46s has it. Uses air entrainment. Any of y'all understand air entrainment versus pressurization? I prefer pressurization. I prefer pressurization because it's what I've used since '89. But air entrainment's a whole different principle. But the fans that Houston has, air entrainment, push out are positive pressure fans. They're around 14,400. Captain Kelly's is 12,000 something on ladder 55. But the leader fans, almost 30,000 cubic feet. Last night we had a leader fan. What I tried to tell them was to throttle it up, and I'll tell y'all this. When you pressurize or you push air in with air entrainment and you're unsure of the situation, throttle slowly. Here's the thing about fans. They speed up everything. They speed up good ventilation. Think about it. If this room's full of smoke and it never got in the attic, we're not going to cut a hole, and it's full of smoke and I can open that door and pressurize that door, man, it's going to clear this thing out quick. I've got a path that pressurizes and pushes it out. But by God, if I don't have a path to push it out and I crank that fan, it's going to speed up things going bad quick too. So if you're unsure, I told you and me would talk about the fan. If you start believing in the fan and want to use it, but you're unsure, all you got to do is just don't come wide open. Give it time. Give it time for your crew to react. If smoke starts coming back with pressurization, that's a bad sign. With air entrainment, it's supposed to for a short period of time. I'm still trying to grasp that. But just don't throttle it wide open. Now, I mean, I called last night on the radio and told the chief, hey, when they crank the fan, make sure they throttle up slowly. That's not what they did. They came in balls to the wall. 30,000 CFM, boom, like that. But I knew from doing a 360, to me, it looked like the fan would be ideal. I wish we'd have cranked it sooner. We had a victim, we didn't find the victim until we finally cranked the fan, got the smoke up. Isn't that incredible how that works? See, I'm still including myself with you motor scooters. You big bad tush hogs, y'all work better when you can see, don't you? That's incredible with visibility. Oh, I had a slide on here about visibility. I put words with that. Hey, that's big for me. I'm impressed that I even turned my computer on, it came on. But this might be as far as we get. Does that kind of sort of explain, was that your question about combining the two?
You answered it.
I'm sorry?
You answered it.
Good.
I thought you were saying that you combined the two, and I was saying,
no.
Because I've only seen it.
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Hey, but if y'all question something I say, please call me on it, because I have made mistakes. But no, absolutely not. I believe in both, but not combined. I think it works against us. Any more questions up to here? Real quick, I think surviving, being able to cut a hole and do it safely is the primary reason they say, hey, you're going to talk to some firefighters. Sometimes it's all rookies, but y'all aren't rookies, so a lot of my stuff, I can just bypass it. But what I want to drive home is that, first off, I firmly believe in cutting holes. I do. But today, because of the construction and what we deal with, you have to know how to do it as safe and as effectively as you can. I hope this is like, will somebody call my wife and tell her I actually turned it on? How to read a roof. Yeah, I can see why I don't like this. This has me not looking toward y'all. No doubt, when things go wrong and the minute you step off the ladder, gravity's trying to bring you back down. This is what I'm gonna do. Y'all watch this, and then I'll stop and then I'll talk. How about that? Y'all see this firefighter disappear? Watch this. See that? This is all Houston. That hole you see, none of that was cut. That's a firefighter going in. See that? That's not a firefighter, but what would that have done if that had hit that motor scooter out here in the yard without a helmet? Has anybody not seen this video? Fresno, California. Now get y'all's attention. That's what that was supposed to do. Hey guys, going on a roof, it's not for the faint of heart. You realize the majority of firefighters in the country will never in their career cut a hole. The vast majority. It's only a small number ever go to a roof and cut a hole. It's a dangerous place. The butt pucker's always kicking in. The butt pucker kicks in for a lot of guys, myself included. The minute I get on a ladder, start getting up off the ground, it doesn't have to be on fire. Gravity is always doing all it can to bring us back down. The problem with this is whenever gravity brings you down into the belly of the fire, the outcome can be bad. Houston, last year we had 3 firefighters that I'm aware of go in. God took care of us and all 3 of them got snatched out. None of them got burned. The one fire that went into solid fire, that captain did get burnt, but not badly. He had the most courageous firefighter I've ever seen in my life with him that literally ran and snatched him out of solid fire, out of this attic. So we still have to be able to get up there and cut a hole. So how do we do it and do it safely? You got to know roofs. You got to know construction. You have to know what you're getting into, and how do we do that? First off, you got to get on roofs when they're not on fire. How do you know what a good roof feels like versus a bad roof? Hey, we can get it. We can go out here, go through one of these subdivisions and get on 100 roofs, and all of them can feel different. We could have a house built out of trusses and a house exactly like it right next to it, built out of full dimensional lumber, and one of them decked with OSB, 1 3/8 plywood, and 1 shiplap. There's no rhyme or reason as to what we'll get. So you have to size the roof up before you get on it. The first thing, let me just say this, size up begins the second you're dispatched. Think about it should. If it doesn't for you young guys, it should. If you're dispatched to a house fire, your thought process for a house should be different than if you're dispatched to a strip center. It should be different if you're dispatched to a church. It should be different if you're dispatched to an apartment, a high-rise, a warehouse. All of those should trigger different thought processes in your head, especially for guys that are going to go to the roof. You guys on the truck. Every one of those is gonna give you a different challenge. And I mean, now in Houston, the vast majority of our fires are residential, but we make all the rest of them too. But so what happens there, we don't get near as much experience on strip centers and flat roofs, warehouses. So you got to get out. You got to get out in your territory. You got to get up on those roofs, look and see how they're built, how they're put together, so you have some idea how they're going to come apart and what different type of holes you're going to cut, depending on what you're dealing with. But let's just talk about. We don't have enough time to get into every single one of these. So let's talk about in Irving. What's the predominant number of your fires? Residential, commercial. Residential. Fort Neches?
Residential.
Residential. Anybody not have the predominant residential? Every one of these firefighters, I got a video of falling in, every one of them was residential. So how about we talk about residential? Let's just go on basics. And then you're gonna have to take that information and build and apply it where it fits on commercial. Residential, when we're dispatched, now residential includes apartments. The minute if they say apartment on fire, I'm thinking truss. I don't, as a rule, think truss on houses, but by God, if I pull into a new subdivision, I need to consider the possibility of truss. I just had a guy on Facebook say that there should be no concern. His bread and butter for 20-something years is trusses. You shouldn't fear. No, you shouldn't fear them. You got to respect them. But if it's trusses, you can't treat it like you do everything else. You can't, if the fire's in the attic, when you get there, the clock already started ticking. You don't know when. And I didn't dream this up. I've been on them. I've watched them disintegrate before your eyes. I've watched the gusset plates pop out. Maybe I didn't watch the gusset plates pop out, but I went back after the next day and you shine the light and all the freaking gusset plates are gone that hold the motor scooter together. So trusses have to be a concern. When I think about trusses, what I plan on doing is writing off a certain amount of the area that's burned. I'm gonna go, if possible, I'm gonna go to an area, give up some roof, cut a hole, and take the fire up and over to that hole versus put my crew directly above the fire. But houses, we should always be trying to size that thing up. The minute I get on scene, I'm visually looking at the roof. Doesn't mean that a lot of times I can't see the roof. I can't see the roof because it's night. I can't see the roof because of smoke. I can't see the roof because I don't have the ability on my 360 to get far enough back to see the roof. So visually sizing up the roof is not always a guarantee. It's probably one of the most difficult ways to size a roof up. But here's the way that there's no excuse not to do. Sounding the roof. Sounding the roof. There is absolutely no reason to not sound a roof. I use an 8-foot steel New York hook to sound with. But I didn't. For the first 30, let's say the first 30 years of my career, I used a picket axe. I used a picket axe to sound every roof I went up on, and for 30 years, I had no plan. I didn't even know why I was sounding the roof. It's what I was taught as a rookie. Somebody took me up on a roof, took a picket axe, hit the roof, and said, "Rookie, always sound the roof." They didn't go any farther than that, and I went up on plenty of roofs, bouncing an axe, but it never told me anything. I didn't know why I was bouncing an axe. I just did it. And then one morning, right down from Station 46 where I worked, we saw the fire, got there, and that bouncing that axe, it didn't work so well. I walked too fast. The axe didn't give me a big enough notice, and suddenly my axe is going through. Now, my feet are only about at most 18 inches from where my axe is going through. So God has taken care of me so many times, and I was able to get off the roof, get my guys back off the roof. And when I got back to Station 46, I thought, you know what? At that time, that was like the 10th roof I had been on that things had gone bad. And everybody know what OSB is? When I came up cutting holes at Station 7 in 3rd Ward, all of them old bull pine houses, shiplap. You couldn't tear them down with a track hoe. But then when I moved to Station 46 farther south, newer area, still old, but newer area, but suddenly I started running into OSB. I had never run into it before. It literally disintegrates. It's glue and chunks of wood. So I started having bad outcomes where I couldn't finish a hole, or I'd have to finish it getting down on my knees. And let me tell y'all, if I don't get to that, if you have to get a hole established and the roof's bad, get down. Get down on your knees, spread your weight out. Think about this. If I'm standing up right now, I'm applying, let's see, if I'm lying, I say I weigh 250 pounds. That's 125 pounds per foot divided by square inches. Y'all get that, right? If I get down, I've taken that weight and spread it out over the length of my leg and my feet. Now here's the other thing it does for you, and this is what really comes in handy, is if suddenly the roof gives way and you're standing up, the first way you can stop your fall are your hands, right? You see how far my hands are from my feet? That means I'm going to drop in and no less than 3 foot before I can hope that I'm going to put my hands on the roof, spread my weight out and stop. Do you think that possibility? Maybe. You get down on your knees, your hands are less than 6 inches from the roof. If the roof starts to go bad, you have the ability to spread your weight out. If the roof starts to go bad, guys, and you have to train on this. If the roof starts to go bad, you want to spread out, you want to roll away from the hole. Good common sense will tell you don't roll down the roof. I've had guys say, well, you mean roll down the roof? No, because gravity is going to take you when you get to the edge. That's not good. Roll laterally away from where the hole is. You have to have this plan. I just cut a hole with a young firefighter from 46s about a year ago, and I practiced everything I'm telling y'all. I sized the roof up. I looked at it. It looked good. It looked good. I got up on the roof with, we're going to do it with hand tools. Fire was for the most part out, but I had crews operating in the attic. I was a captain for 16 years, and I know how them attics can be hot. And so I convinced the chief, let me take a young guy to the roof, so I'm going to give him a class. Yeah, I gave him a class, all right, on how to get it done under horrible conditions. But here's what shocked me. I never even would have brought it up if what I had seen visually indicated I had a bad roof. I didn't see a single thing. No smoke coming through the shingles, no dips, no humps, no irregularities. Roof looked good. So I thought, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to teach the young guy. What I found out is the minute I started sounding with I actually had a 6-foot fiberglass New York hook. That's all the closest engine had. But again, I wasn't concerned. I had looked at the roof good before I ever brought up that I'm going to go kind of show off and show a young guy how to do his job. The first time I started sounding with that New York hook, I started going through the decking. And it got to where we had to get on our knees, and I wasn't sure we were going to get the hole established. It was a good class. We got to do it with the flathead axe backwards, which I don't know about anybody here not know about a flathead axe backwards and how effective it is for cutting holes. When it's in my hands, it runs out of gas real friggin' quick, but it never fails to start. It either runs out of gas or I throw it through the roof. But we got it done, and it was a good class for how to operate on a bad roof, but it wasn't my original intent. If you have watched the whole video, and I'm not knocking this captain because this captain had less time in when his life changed than I did when I finally wised up and realized what I had done for my whole career wasn't going to get me through the rest of my career. I had to go from an axe to an 8-foot steel New York hook, so I had an early warning because things are different. It's not the old construction. So what he did is, if you watch the whole video, it almost looks like it's a walking stick. There is absolutely no sense of purpose in his sounding with a rubbish hook. None. All the way up to where he sounds one time on a separate roof than he had walked up on. sounded one time, his hand is in the middle of the pole. There is absolutely no sense of purpose. He sounds, he steps, and his life changed forever. He survived, but he'll never be the same. I assure you, right about here, he's probably wishing that he had paid more attention to going up on roofs. Going on roofs, it's not a stroll in the park. Do you have a question?
I do. What about when you first come on scene and you go up on a roof, starting up on the hip and the ridge, isn't the strongest point of the roof?
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that the best way to go up on a roof to begin with?
Well, if it's a hip roof and you go up on it, yes, because your ridge and your valleys and your walls are the strongest parts of the roof. But not every roof's a hip roof.
Right.
And not every time can you get a ladder. Here, let me just tell you real quick. Hey, can you freeze that there? Let me tell you real quick. I like to mount a roof away from where I'm going to cut the hole. Now there's some roofs when you do your 360 and you size it up, you said this is where I'm going, and you got to put your ladder up. You push your roof ladder up, you hook it, you go up, you cut your hole. But I prefer, if the house is big enough, the structure is big enough, I prefer to mount the roof away from where the fire's at. This is what it does for me. I'm on a pitched roof. My target is the ridge, strongest part. Now I'm going up in a straight line to the ridge, down the ridge to determine where I'm going to cut the hole. Now I'll tell you, I've used the tick. Now that in Houston, we got the tick that hangs right here and you don't even know it's there, I use it. Back in the days when it was like a boat anchor, I used it as an indicator. I'd always throw it somewhere it indicated where I had been. I didn't tote it. But I've used it with some really, when the fire's already made its way in the attic, I've had great success with the tick telling me where I need to cut my hole. But it's useless to you on the roof if the fire hadn't gotten to the attic. You don't get a heat signature. But I always have the tick. But I like to mount the roof away from where I intend to cut the hole. Even if I know this is my target, that's where I want to go. I want to mount the roof over here. Here's what it does. I haven't been on this roof before. I'm going to mount the roof. When I get to the tip of the ladder, I'm going to scan the roof, see what it looks like. What am I dealing with? I may have heavy smoke over here, can't see the roof, but if I can, what am I dealing with as far as the roof? Residential, I know I don't cut inspection holes. But what am I dealing with as far as the roof? Now, I'm going to sound the roof, and here, right off the ladder, is going to tell me what a solid roof feels like on this house. So imagine with the New York hook. Say when I sound it, I apply 60 pounds of pressure, and it doesn't go. I'm not trying to go through good. I'm not trying to punch through good decking. I'm trying to find bad decking. And decking is my number one concern is decking, not rafters. Strong rafters and bad decking, you're still going to go in. Bad rafters and strong decking, the roof give you some warning. But no matter how strong the rafters are, if you have bad decking, unless you're a tightrope walker and you can go right up that rafter, I'm not taking my guys walking up a rafter when the decking around it's bad. So what I'm trying to find is bad decking. And so imagine I get to the tip of the ladder. I'm trying to visually size up and imagine I can see. Then I'm going to sound the roof. Now, the roof right here near the wall is going to be strong and solid when you walk on it because it's attached to the wall. But the decking, that gives me an idea of okay, this amount of force didn't go through the decking. Now I'm going to step on the roof. When I step on the roof, that's going to be one of the stronger areas because it's near a wall. So I'm not going to have a real good, okay, I step on, I feel what the decking is, I start to sound, I sound in about a 3-foot arc, and my target is the ridge. Excuse me. Okay, I'm sounding. As I start to walk away and go up toward the ridge, the roof is going to change the way it feels. The rafters themselves, now it depends. A steep roof, you're not going to notice as much. A flatter roof, you will. And a lot of it has to do with bracing. But as you get away from the strongest part, which is the wall and the ridge, and you get up here in the middle, you'll get some movement. If it's the rafters moving, you feel it in your knees. If you step and the rafters sag, you're going to do this. If you step on bad decking, you feel it in your feet. Don't apply that and don't hold it. Just think about it. When you got 39 years in, it'll make sense. But here, I'm trying to explain what I do and why I do it. Okay, so as I'm walking up the roof, number one thing I'm doing is I'm sounding and trying to visually observe the roof. So I'm sounding, confirming good decking is what I'm sounding. But as I move up, you can't help but feel the give in the roof. If I'm sounding and I feel good decking, and then suddenly the roof changes dramatically and feels like I'm walking on a waterbed, I need to be concerned. I may have rafters that are being compromised. I may have my ridge board, depends, they would be on both sides. But it's something to be a concern, not necessarily that means you've abandoned the area. It may mean that you relocate. Depends a lot of times on how much roof space you have. But I'm sounding, as I get to the ridge, again, I get good solid. Now I'll straddle the ridge and try to go and determine where I'm going to cut my hole. For me, my clean out man always follows me and he drags the roof ladder. I put a roof ladder up on everything. Very seldom do I work off a roof ladder. But the roof ladder's there kind of as a safe place, good place for stage tools if the roof suddenly goes bad. And I've had them do it where we slide off the roof ladder on our bellies, glad it was there. But I do it on every single roof. My saw man comes up last because I don't know until I determine walking down that ridge exactly where I'm going to cut. As I walk down that ridge, sizing the roof up, feeling, looking at what my smoke conditions are. Say I determine this is where I want to cut my hole, I'm going to sound an area much bigger than what we're going to cut. We're planning on cutting a 9x5. I'm going to sound a bigger area because me and the saw man are going to move around this hole one time together. Was it showing? Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm gonna sound bigger than my hole. I'm gonna back my cutter up. My saw man, I always have his bottom, top. My job's to keep him from going in the hole and off the roof. We're gonna cut my clean out man. I find out clean out man use good common sense. That they normally stage on the other side of the ridge because as a cutter, most of the time we're cutting on the dirty side of the roof. Understand the dirty side is the downwind side. The clean side is the windward side. I have a rule that I follow. I don't cut on the windward side in over a 10-mile-an-hour wind. 10 miles an hour is my cutoff. I preach that and I teach that, and one night under the cover of darkness, my guys, when I was a real firefighter, they slid a study underneath my door. No, I never have put a name with who slid it. But it said that you could safely, on some roofs, cut a hole in up to a 16-mile-an-hour wind. And I appreciated the fact that they called me out on my rule about 10. But here's the deal. They're the captain they work with. He's not smart enough to tell 16 from 10. I have an idea of what it is, but I'm not smart enough. And two, I'm not smart enough to always know that is that a 412 pitch or a 512 pitch. 612 I'm pretty sure about. That's about as steep as I can walk comfortably. 812 is the one where you take 2 steps up and 3 steps back. 812 is where if you get real brave and carry your balls in a wheelbarrow, you get up there, think you're a bad motor scooter, you start cutting, sawdust gets under your feet and you go to the ground, gravity wins. So 612 is about the steepest I feel comfortable cutting. But I can't follow, everything I do, I have to do to an extreme. Meaning if somebody does a study and they give me a whole lot of latitude, I can't take it. I'm not that smart. Where I work, it's not a perfect world. One day I'll have wind from one direction and the next day I've got zero visibility, and one kind of construction versus another kind of construction. So I have to find a parameter, and that's what my rule is. And for me, it's 10 miles an hour. The biggest hole I ever cut on a residential south lawn had a rookie with me. He cut 10 holes in 2 months. And he cut the biggest freaking hole I've ever been a part of. And it's mainly because once he got started, I couldn't stop him. But we ended up cutting a 10 by 6. And I was concerned because I had a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and that roof was about a 512 pitch. But here's what I did. I watched it close, but here's what I did. As we cut and we started opening it up, I dice. I've done about every kind of cut but a circle cut. But I now dice. As we started opening it up, I paid close attention to what the smoke was doing. And I kept getting good return on my smoke, nothing pushing back in. And so we opened it up and it all worked. It worked great, in fact. But I was concerned because I was dealing with about a 10-mile-an-hour wind right in across my hole. Does anybody have a different rule for the wind? Yes, sir.
I don't have a rule on the wind, but...
Hang on, I'm sorry.
I don't have a rule on the wind, but can you explain a little bit when you talk about opening it up, what you mean exactly?
Absolutely.
You know, because there's a different... People think that sometimes opening it up means the top layer. Or do you mean, are you referring to the top layer, or are you referring to actually pushing down the ship?
It depends. I got to open my top before I punch through the bottom.
Exactly.
But
the terminology, open it up.
Correct.
You know.
Well, open it up, punch it through. Two different things. Opening it up is knocking my decking in or pulling my decking out. Punch it through is actually punching through the ceiling. It's not until I punch through that I call command and tell them rooftop ventilation is established. Hey, there are times that I don't want to punch through. I may want to open up, and I may, like balloon frame, I may want to open up the attic, but I might not want to punch through. I might not have fire on the second floor, and all I want to do with balloon frame is take it up the walls to the attic, out the hole, as opposed to on balloon frame where it goes everywhere. Do y'all have balloon frame in Port Neches?
So very rare houses.
If you did with only 4 people, because if y'all are familiar with balloon frame, you know, it's just voids on top of voids. It's old construction. And on balloon frame, you have got to go to the roof, cut a hole, take it to the attic. We can do something with it in the attic. But if you don't take it to the attic and it's trying to get out, which fire is always trying to find area of least resistance, and it'll go up the wall, go across your subflooring, back up the wall, and the next thing you know, it's everywhere. So the quicker on balloon frame you get up, but in balloon frame, if I don't have fire on the second floor, I don't want to punch through. I don't want to take fire up the stairway to the second floor. I just want to bring it up the walls. Hey, this is like a 2-hour class, isn't it? It's like about a 2-hour class. This is like an 80-hour class. That's what it is. I mean, every single thing I start to talk about, it's like this. Never move onto a roof of different pitches. Anybody know what I'm talking about there? Can you play it real quick? I should have a picture. If it shows, okay, here you go. Stop. Can you? This is the picture from Fresno. This is where he fell through. You don't. Okay, I told you when I mount a roof, I'm going to sound, then I'm going to step. Then as I'm sounding, I'm walking up toward the ridge. This captain that you watched fall 4 different times in this hole, he came up this roof. This is the house. This is the garage. You see, they're not the same. They're attached, but they're not attached. They're not connected. Look at the difference in the conditions here when they cut after he fell in and the conditions here. Just because it's tied in does not necessarily mean you get the same conditions. But let's imagine that we did have fire in this roof and in this roof. You're going to get different outcomes because which one started first? This pitch is a heat sink. Okay, at the pitch, the heat goes up to the highest point. That's where fire, smoke, and heat all want to go up. And so it goes to the highest spot. So where did it go to first? Where was the first place started being compromised by fire, smoke, and heat? And so what you'll do, hey, you can go on the computer and watch this over and over. You'll watch a firefighter walking down a roof, sounding, and and this is what Captain Darn did. This is exactly what he did. He came up this roof without doing a visual look of this roof. He comes in from the D side, observes this roof, I'm guessing he did, gets up on it, walks with no sense of purpose, sounding the roof, steps. Y'all already know where this is going, right? Okay, when I'm walking like this, it's a different load I'm putting on. When I step down, it's a different load, right? More pressure. But here's the other thing. This roof is not this roof. You don't ever step from one roof to another without sound and with a purpose. Because this roof is going to absorb heat different depending on how long it's been exposed to the heat. You can pull up and have smoke pumping out the soffits of both of them. Both of them are involved attics, but one of them will still be safe that you can sound and get up and cut a hole, and the other one will send you right in like it did him. All he needed was one class. All he needed was to have had one class watching some other firefighter fall in and say, look, don't ever walk on a roof and not sound with a purpose. Now, I told you I use a steel New York hook. I also told you I'm on Facebook. I've taken a lot of crap from a lot of guys throughout the country about my steel New York hook. One of them the other day, he runs a site, Truck Floor Training. Yeah, he's a dick. That's okay. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I got Jesus in my heart, so I like to mess with dicks in a nice way. And he more or less, I had written a class about rooftop safety and about what I used. And he got on there without me direct and said that using a New York hook was like knocking on a door with your knuckle. But he uses a rubbish hook, and it's like pounding on it with your fist. And he went on to say, and I was glad, he went on to say that when he hits the roof, he hears the roof, and he feels it through his feet, and something else. And I replied and said, well, I'm old. I can't hear. My feet are numb. I can't feel. And so I have to just poke around. So I'm a poker, not a pummeler or whatever. He used some big term. He's full of himself. I looked him up. The motor scooter was born. I already had like 10 years in the fire service before he was born. But the rubbish hook may be a good tool. I don't know. What do y'all sound for when you go to a roof? Are you sounding for decking or are you sounding for rafters? Both?
Both.
Okay. Then I don't know that my New York hook would be your tool probably. What do you use?
The rubbish hook.
Rubbish hook, okay.
I haven't used a New York hook.
Okay, now see, in Houston, the only because this is my experience in Houston. What do you go to the roof?
I've been to the roof, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have another tool besides a rubbish hook, or anybody else use a rubbish hook? Anybody use a New York hook? New York hook, okay. Either way, hey, it doesn't matter. As long as you have it and you use it with a purpose. I just found that I've got a rubbish hook. I always have one. I've got a picture of it I can show you if you have all night. But we always have a 6-foot rubbish hook and an 8-foot New York hook taped to the end of our roof ladder that's going to go to the roof. It's always stood up. When I get to the top of the access ladder, I snatch off the New York hook, and that's what I sound. The rubbish hook stays there. My clean-out man may use it. I tried the rubbish hook, but that's not knocking. I'm not as smart as, we're different people. The New York hook, I had better luck getting early indication of bad decking in it. The rubbish hook, I didn't have the ability to find bad decking as readily as I did with the New York hook. It doesn't make either one of them bad or good. Y'all are pounders and I'm just a knocker.
So I would say I followed that whole post. I had a lot to send back to them, but I held off. But if you watch how those guys use that rubbish hook, the way they hold that D handle, they're using the corner, they're not using the whole flat
Right.
surface. So essentially, it seems like it's the exact same thing. All that force is going to one point on the corner of the rubber strip, just like all the force used is going to the point.
Right.
Like it's the same exact thing.
No, I agree.
It looks different.
No, I agree. I
But
watched his video. Hey, I'm not knocking him, other
Oh, no,
than
yeah.
he meant it in a
I don't
negative
think
way.
they see that they're doing the same thing you're doing, and it's really the same thing, it's just a different tool.
I'm 60 years old. Most of them motor scooters are probably, what, 30, 40 years old, big old strong. I don't have the oomph anymore. So maybe it's because I'm 60 that I transitioned to an easier tool. Not saying, hey, I had to defend it. It's what I take up. If I don't defend it, I look like I got cock on my face, don't I?
I haven't used one because we haven't had one.
Right, and so when you're using your, same to me, so when you're using your New York hook, sounding for decking, if it's solid, you're just seeing if the tip goes through?
That's it.
Okay, now I was on a bad roof, and I had a rubbish hook, and the guy behind me, he had a pipe pull. Now, I was sounding, walking the ridge, sounding, going, oh, okay, it's good, it was burning for a while. He yelled at me, he goes, hey, Bobby, and he's driving through it, and it felt weird. It was my first time on bad roof. He's driving through with a pipe pull. I said, oh, so I didn't catch it with a rubbish hook, so we backed up.
That was my experience, and not saying that a rubbish hook's bad. I just the reason I bring it up to see a pipe pole to me too small of an area because I can too easily go through and I get maybe a bad reading too early. If you haven't ever used a real New York hook, not the real one, the one that has a flat side on one side, not the imposters. We bought a crap load of these fiberglass imposters. They're crap. But a real New York hook, oh my God. Don't I wish I had it back 30-something years ago. If any of you ever get a chance on shiplap, I found that out. It will blow up shiplap. And I found that out when I told my own guys what a horrible design it was. I said, bring me one, let me show you what a bad design. And every lick I was blowing through shiplap. And I said, well, that's a fluke. So we went back the next day, did it the next day, went to Sevens, did it on a fire they made. Said, oh my God, where's this motor scooter been? It doesn't, here's the thing that I would probably, it's not a rubbish hook, New York hook battle. It's whatever tool, but today's roofs, I think you got to get away from the short handle, the axe, and the maul, because it doesn't give you an early enough warning. I had close calls. God took care of me, and that, believe me, it wasn't that I just sat down one day at the station and said, I think I'm going to change. It wasn't that. I'm not like that. You got to hit me upside the head. But once I decided I was going to change, then I started thinking about what was I trying to accomplish. I started sounding with a purpose, and what I'm trying to find is bad decking. That I have more problems, hands down, with bad decking versus bad rafters. I'm not even worried about trusses if I don't have fire in the attic as much as I am about just the friggin' decking they put on top of it. Any more questions before I go to the next slide? Any questions about this? And it doesn't have to be, it can be totally different. Somewhere on here I've got a picture of a house that has a little wing come off of it. That wing, where it comes off of, it's going to give you different conditions on the same fire than which one got exposed first. That's the deal. You can't just move from one roof or one pitch to another without confirming that it's bad. You know what? I was thinking this. I saw a picture of Royal Gorge. Is that the one in Colorado? It's like, yeah. Yeah. Would anybody in here, if you went to Royal Gorge and was hiking and found a footbridge going across in a wood footbridge and have your family with you, but it's a secret wood footbridge, and you look at the wood, but you don't really know how long it's been there, how many would just go across a wood footbridge and just trust that it's going to keep you from going 14,000 foot in the bottom of this gorge or however deep it is? Hey, Houston, the number of friggin' officers that get on a friggin' roof and never sound one iota, it blows my mind. But you know what blows my mind more? It doesn't matter where I go and teach a class, they don't sit in. They're smarter. They are. They're smarter, except that, let me think, 3 last year? Oh, none of those 3 had officers that sounded the roof. Hey, some point in time, I don't know about the rest of you motor scooters, but point in time in Houston, our number's gonna run out. One of them guys is gonna go in and not gonna have the good outcome. Dallas had lost an officer, what, about 4, 5, 6 years ago? Hey, it happens. It's hard to climb out of an attic that's fully involved. You go ahead. I'll let it play and let me see if I can. Hey, this makes me sick when I think, oh God. Can you stop it right there? Here's what I want y'all to see. You see all this smoke coming through this decking, through this roof? Can you hit play real quick and then freeze it? You see it? It's pushing through. Guys, this is a no-go sign. I'm not talking about when you get up on a roof and it's got, look like little pencils or tornadoes of smoke, and you got one coming out here and you got one coming out there, or you got like a valley or a hip or a ridge that has more coming out of it. Sometimes if it's shiplap or if it's 2x6 Raptors, every seam, you'll get more of that. What I'm talking about is where it's all over the place. That happens because the decking is being burned away. From this visual here. Now remember, he didn't do a 360. He came up from the D side, mounted a roof that was not on fire, walked over the roof, stepped, sounded the bad roof one time, hit it, stepped. He hit it. In all honesty, I watched it over and over. My brain would not have been able to register as fast as he went from hit to step. There wasn't a lag time. He touched it with his rubbish hook, he stepped, and his life changed. But if he had come around from this position, this would have told him, don't go on that roof. Doesn't mean that we're not going to cut a hole on a roof. Depends on the size of the roof. But if I'm on an apartment complex and I go over there and I see smoke pushing through the shingles, I'm not going to cut a hole there. I may come over and cut a hole. I had a church where, I don't know how many of y'all know Chris Silman. We made that church on Edgar. And hell, I couldn't see the roof from the smoke, but my EO on ladder 46, when the smoke swirled, he saw all of that where me and 2 of my guys were fixing. Now I was sounding, and hopefully I would have, when I sounded it, I would have sounded early enough to know, hey, it's bad. But my EO saw it from his position on the ground, and he was able to call for us to get off the roof. And you know what happened there shortly after? That whole mother fricker came down. Those are no-go signs, smoke coming through the shingles. Hey guys, and this sounds funny coming from me, that a guy that can't make this thing work, but if you go on a computer and you just pull up firefighters falling in, firefighters whatever, or just pull up videos, and you don't have to actually go make fires to see what I'm talking about. You can see it over and over and over. Smoke conditions, you can see super black smoke and freeze frame and say, okay, now what's my brain saying fixing to happen? And then when you hit play, see if I'm wrong about that it turns orange like in 10 seconds. Or if you see them crank the fan, there's a lot of those. They crank a fan with guys inside of it and light the whole motor scooter off, and then they wonder, or they say, well, the fan's bad. I guess hit play and let's get to some other part. You see the sounding? Do you see how there was no sense of purpose with the sounding? That's the part it's sad, because our department should take every one of us and teach us everything we need to know about the jobs we do, but how many do? Certainly not friggin' Houston. Hell, now they're making me go to learn how to talk on a friggin' radio. And yet last night I listened to a guy, sounded like he taught the mother friggin' class and talked for 14 minutes on the radio instead of getting balls deep in this house and finding a victim. Okay, this is a hole created by a Houston firefighter that fell in. That's how the hole was created. Now, he was lucky because the guys on that fire were flowing 200 gallons a minute on 2 lines inside and had the fire under control. But look at all the signs on this blue tarp. Now, that's not a reason not to go to a roof, but it's a concern. Think about when we get dispatched. I've talked to you all about it. When we get dispatched, you start your size up. What am I going to? What kind of a structure? You pull up, you see a blue tarp. Some guys say, blue tarp, don't go to the roof. Now, wait a minute. What if the blue tarp's only on 1/3 of the roof? Does that mean none of the roof? I will tell you, don't go to the roof and try to cut through a blue tarp. Not with a chainsaw. I've had guys try it and they call and tell me what a horrible idea it was. You didn't see that coming. Can we go to the next one? If you pulled up on this one, this sucker got smoke coming through the shingles, and you saw this on your 360, would you think it's a good idea to get up there and walk on that roof? Hey now, we got to do the risk versus reward. Okay, it's easy to say. You see all the humps and the dips in this one? That's a bad sign. This will tell me I don't want to maybe get on this one, but I can tell you this apartment, I can go right on the other side of this gable and I could have cut a hole, but not here. So these are the visual clues when you can see them, and by God, you can't always see them. I had a chief, I was teaching a class in Houston, and I told his guys, I said, most of the time, you have limited or no visibility on a roof. And the chief, he stood up and said, Captain, I think you're wrong. And so I'm never sure that I'm right, so I called Captain Paget at 46, cuts a lot of holes. And I said, Captain Paget, if I said this, would I be wrong? He said, oh, hell no. I mean, I've got a crap load of videos of holes being cut where you can't even see the guys cutting the holes. They got the helmet cams. You can't see them. Every now and then you see a tool. Most of the time we have limited or no visibility. Oh, here, can you freeze that? This isn't saying this is, hey, guys have got better ideas too. Are y'all still using the tie straps? We didn't have enough money at 46 for tie straps, but we duct taped our tools. But see, I've got a rubbish hook. I've got it. But I also have my steel New York hook. But here's the deal. They're always there. They're on every roof. That ladder always gets the hooks deployed, gets stood up. That's the one we take up to the roof. I snatch the New York hook off. That's what I sound with. Clean out man will use this, or who use. So, okay.
Hey, Captain Jenkins.
Hey.
You were at 31s 2 weeks ago. At 31? You were at 31s riding Senior about 2 weeks ago?
No, just
what was it?
3-4 days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And did you see the rubbish hook, how it's attached to the,
Yeah.
how we ended up putting on one end, the fake, New York style hook
Right.
on the rubbish hook and attach it through the rungs, and that's actually how we attach it so we can get out the way when we throw that roof back up.
Yeah. So see, 31s did it different. They ground off one end on.
We got the rubbish hook. I just actually took.
It's a rubbish hook New York hook combination. There's how you solve the problem. Put them two together. They had it, and they did. I rode it at station, and they had the rubbish hook / New York hook mounted on the top, on the rung of the beam of the ladder, and they had ground off part of it just enough so it went into the rung, and then they had a tie strap holding it in place. I don't have the best ideas, but not having your tools go up every time with you means somebody's got to go and bring them. And here's something I haven't talked about is the 10-second rule. Anybody know how much time I got left?
You good, Cam?
Yeah, you may be saying good. Some of these motors could be going, man, you got to cut it off. Let me just qualify the 10-second rule. Your mask will melt off of your face in 10 seconds direct flame contact. Anybody doubt that? It's just a number. Now, I've gone and talked to, now in Houston, oh gosh, now I guess it's 6 or 7 Houston firefighters have been caught. And I say flash over, that is a catch-all. they were caught in sudden unexpected fire events that brought fire floor to ceiling. Flashover's technical, and if we do the right thing, and I know if we read the fire, if we cool the atmosphere, we can prevent a flashover. What we cannot prevent is an unexpected fire event. Sudden wind change, ceiling failure, aerosol, propane, butane, gasoline. Here's the deal, guys. How you get in this situation where you're fighting for your life can be any number of different ways. And so knowing how it happened when suddenly you're covered up in fire is irrelevant. What's relevant is what are you going to do to survive? Your mask, if you don't do anything and you can't get the fire off of you, your mask will melt off of your face in as little as 10 seconds. I interviewed a rookie, told me 7 before he saw his mask melt. One captain told me 22. Every other captain, this kind of sounds bad for Houston and captains. One rookie, every other one was a captain. All the rest of them told me about 10 seconds. Now, remember, nobody had a stopwatch. This is their perception of time. So I use 10 seconds as a good marker to gauge everything I do and everything I have my guys do against 10 seconds. Because if we can believe that in as little as 10 seconds in a catastrophic fire event we could lose our lives, then why shouldn't we be trying to save 10 seconds? Shouldn't we? It sounds, it's not. Think about, I know none of y'all, but those guys that didn't show up tonight, the ones at some point in time y'all relieve them in their gear in Houston. You got gear zipped up in a friggin' duffel bag on the apparatus. The guy rode there the day before. Or his gear is just tossed in there. His radio, which in Houston, we got this brilliant radio system. It's got 4 separate pieces. When you include the radio, it's 4 separate pieces. And I'll relieve somebody, their stuff will be all over. Imagine that person versus you. I'm sure all of y'all, I am anal. I'm old. I cannot stand when some motor scooter moves my gear. My stuff has got to be laid out exactly the same every time, because when I get to the back of my car, I got to get 10 seconds. So imagine the guy that doesn't have a plan versus you that has a plan. You lay your gear out. You know exactly how you're going to put it on. You're saving 10 seconds. You move back to your air pack. You check it. You make sure, oh my God, this is such a brilliant idea. You make sure the straps are all deployed out so you can get in it versus the guy that used it the last time and had them all cinched up. You go to your cross lays and you make sure that they're loaded right and that they're ready to deploy versus the guy that says, cross lays, what the hell is that? I love the ones when I ask them what nozzles they carry. Whatever my guys want. No. Your saws. I rode a truck. Now, I've never rode anywhere but Houston. So I rode a truck. It had their saws underneath salvage covers. Needless to say, it doesn't normally take me long when I go to some other station to figure out what I'm going to give a class on. Let's see, saws, salvage covers. Which one of these motor scooters is going to save a life? So 10 seconds, if you just think about everything you do in the morning, I do it every morning and never break a sweat. When I teach my guys, their whole career, they can go and never break a sweat and save much, much more than 10 seconds on the Fireground. Imagine, and I don't know about, hey, in Houston, any day I could ride with a guy I've never met, never trained with, and be forced to ride him on my fire apparatus. That's the way we do it. Now, one guy will have somebody come in and ride with him and never even talk to him till the booper goes off. And then they'll talk about, we're going to do rock, paper, scissors, figure out what the hell we're going to do on this Fireground. Or captains, when I ask them, I said, Captain, when we get there, we're going to get around and we're going to decide. We're going to decide what that man behind me is going to do. Not me. every motor scooter rides with me knows he better have it drilled in his brain what his assignment is. They do, what their tool assignment, what their job is. When that booper goes off, there's none of this crap about who does what. I rode at a station the other day, and maybe it was a month or two ago, and I asked the guys about what their plan was for cutting a hole. And they couldn't tell me what their plan. I said, well, do you louver or do you dice? See, I knew right then that really wasn't very good. These weren't first day rookies. These guys rode an apparatus, and they couldn't tell me. 31s could tell me. Well, Alan, the guy.
31 C shift.
I'm sorry?
31 C shift can tell.
Yeah. If you give assignments, if you have a guy come into your station or you go to a station and work with somebody you never worked with, think about the amount of time you save by just getting with that officer, or if you're an officer, getting with that firefighter, or oh my God, an EO, the driver, and tell them what you want, what you expect. Think about the amount of time saved versus waiting until the booper goes off and you get on scene. I was a captain for 16 years, and I never one time in my life ever let a motor scooter come drive me that had never driven me before that I did not go out and give him a class on that pump panel. Not one friggin' time. And in the process of doing that, I found there were 5 EOs in Houston. They weren't qualified to drive. They had to ride plugs. No, you ain't driving me, and I'm not training you tonight. But 10 seconds, man, you can do it. If you just save a little bit here and a little bit there, it adds up. It's a huge amount of time when you pull up on the fire ground, and I guarantee you, if somebody on the outside is sitting there watching, they'll know that you, man, look at them professionals, and they'll look at this other crew over here and go, man, what's going on there? How come those guys can't hit their ass with both hands? Okay, how many, no, I'm not gonna ask how many, that puts you on the spot. Let me just tell y'all can I just tell y'all what I do? Because what I do has worked good for me for 39 years, but when I'm talking about air packs, for about 36. When I'm talking about hoods, I'm only talking about 31, 32, because we didn't wear air packs, and then we didn't wear hoods. But let me tell you, I was not a smoke eater. I would, if we hadn't got air packs, I would be a Walmart greeter. I would do something exciting because they would have run me off. I was not a smoke eater. So when we started wearing air packs, somebody taught me a trick. And I wish to God I knew who it was. But they taught me a trick that I teach and try to teach everybody. And it has carried me through 36 years of wearing air packs. And that's dish soap to defog my mask. Guys, the first day of every single tour, I bought a bottle of Ivory. It doesn't have to be Ivory. It can be Dawn, it can be Joy. In Houston, the cheapest dish soap the city ever gave us worked great for defogging. I defogged at Sevens the other day with laundry detergent because I didn't want to take the time to go upstairs. Takes one drop, not even a big drop, one drop. I put it inside, fingers only. Whenever anybody tells me, and I got them all the time, so Captain, I try it, but it doesn't always work. That's funny, because it's always worked for me for 36 years. It has always worked for me. I just wore my air pack, my mask, nonstop for 4 hours on a huge warehouse fire on Harwin. Wasn't plugged in the whole time, but my mask never fogged up. I never had to do that trying to see through the fog. I was able to still function and have my mask on and plug in every time the smoke changed directions. But one drop of dish soap, I put it on the inside and the outside. And I use only fingers. And I use fingers in my pants. That drove my mother nuts, but I saved lots of trees over my life using pants. But I put that on and I start spreading it around while I'm walking to my locker, first day of the tour. I'm spreading it around, and when I get to my apparatus, I do my tick. With the soap on my fingers, I do the front lens on my tick and the back lens. It's the front lens the most important, and I do my helmet light and my survivor light, because when you get in there where you get good steam conversion, what happens? That tick whites out. And I don't know about y'all, but I would always wipe this screen. That's not the screen, it's this screen. But I use 1 drop of soap and it does everything. And now by the time I get it spread around, I'm ready to go. And what I'm trying to do is buff it out with only fingertips. Buff it out. It may take me 3 or 4 minutes. But when it gets down, sometimes it'll be just a light haze. What you do is you huff into it like you're fogging up a mirror, and it'll clear it up, and that motor scooter's good to go. And here's the other thing about huffing. If I do my mask the first day of the tour and I don't make a fire, the second day of the tour, when I pull my mask out of my locker, I huff into it. If it even acts like it's gonna fog up, I do it again. But most of the time, I'm good to go. Now, when I rode at 31s the other day, we made a fire right off the bat, and then we made that old folks home that night. And the next day when I got to 7s, I huffed into it, and that said, whoo, hang on, motor scooter. I see a little bit of condensation here. I can't afford that. I'm old. I can't afford that. So I started looking for soap, and I used laundry detergent for the first time in my life. Now, it didn't last real good, because yesterday morning when I went to work, I had to go back to soap. But anyway, but here's the deal about dish soap. Everybody's got it. I went by a station one day and made 3 back-to-back backfires riding ladder 68. And we went to get fuel, and I noticed my mask on the last fire started to fog up. So 82s. I go in there and say, hey, can I borrow a drop of Joy? And I asked a bunch of young guys at the table. Had never met them. I said, what do y'all do? And in Houston, the #1 answer is bypass, or this little catch me, screw me magnet and a piece of felt. You know, the one where let's say you're climbing an aerial ladder going to the 7th floor carrying all your high-rise shit, and you can't see, so you do this. Remember this, gravity always wins. But one of the guys at the table, one of them used the bypass. I gave him a class. The other one told me, he said, Kevin, he said, a buddy brought me some wax from the Amazon. He said, it works great. Okay, that's good. What's your plan the day the wax runs out? Because my plan, I've never gone to a fire station didn't have dish soap. Even that pink antibacterial stuff works. Hey, one guy told me shaving cream. Hey, it's the glycerin in all of them that works. It's not, you can't get too ate up. It's the fact, for me, dish soap is always readily available. And when I do it and I only use fingertips, I don't have a failure. I don't have a failure. And by God, when you go on a roof and you have limited or no visibility and you can't see, you don't want to miss that one opportunity when that smoke swirls and could have gave you a good view of where you're fixing to step or something. I mean, think about it. Hey, God, this just isn't enough time. We got to have this again tomorrow. No. Hey, I made the biggest hoarder's house I've ever made about a year ago. Big, huge hoarder's house, full of crap, rocking. Confirm report, people trapped. Neighbors said they could hear them screaming. Could not access either door. Literally, these people, they brought them food through a window or something, but had to tear one door off the hinge. The back door, when they broke it in, there was the female victim DOA. But we're still missing the man, and the neighbor said he could hear him behind the door. Now, in defense of reset, before resetting, we probably wouldn't have gone into this motor scooter. It was a horrible, horrible fire. Crap stacked to the ceiling, burning all over. Probably wouldn't have gone in, but we had engine 33 with a 2.5 solid tip. Reset this fire continuously, and in Houston, we had a lot of guys, they were upset about resetting because they thought it was going to take away their firefighting. That hasn't happened. If anything, what it has done is taken away us getting our asses handed to us, bailing out, calling it knock down the fire after the fact. It's a tool. But my point about this fire is horrible, horrible conditions, confirmed report of a victim trapped. On secondary search that we were able to get because we were resetting continuously, Tower 21 found the man underneath plastic bags. And when I heard, I was on the Charlie, I had control of the Charlie, Bravo, and Delta divisions. And when I heard they found the victim and he was alive, I want to know. I like to always check into bad shit and good shit. Find out how it happened, why did it work. So after the fire, I went straight around to the captain on Tower 21 and I said, tell me the story, how'd y'all find him? And I asked, under those conditions, how did you find him? He said, well, we saw him. You saw him? That house was full of smoke. How'd you see him? How'd you see him through your mask? And she looked at me. She didn't know. She said, well, we use soap to defog it. Guess what? This man, this will blow your mind. This man, his family, his grandkids and great-grandkids total over 100 people. This man, now his wife died, but this man survived because a crew defogged their mask, found him and brought him out, and he has over 100. Now you gotta wonder, I don't know, but still, could you imagine the impact that would have had on that family if their mask had been fogged up and they'd have missed him? Another rescue the other day. Got a brand new rookie in Houston, snatched a woman out through burglar bars. She was 10 seconds, she fixed to be dead. Stuck his ads in of his Halligan into the burglar bars, popped them, snatched her out, got burnt her hair on the back of her head and her neck. And I asked him, I said, how were you able to see? He said, Captain, I used soap to defog my mask. No, you know what? It is. It's a brilliant idea. I wish I knew who taught me, but it's brilliant enough that I want to make sure I never go and I don't tell other people. Now, that's if you like to see. I'm just kind of weird that way. Okay, can we play and see what else I can stir? Hey, do I have any questions? Scared? Oh, you're good.
I do want to know one thing. You talked about cutting holes. You talked about 9x5 and dicing.
Correct.
Do you have a method or a certain sequence that you go through when you cut the dice?
I sure do. Did y'all all hear the question about dice? Okay, let me describe that. Well, we missed that one.
You want to back up?
If you can back up, I do want to talk about that. Okay, let's talk about dicing versus louvering. I said that I have cut. In the old days, we made 4 cuts and we pulled. We did triangle cuts on steep roofs where we hung off of the ridge. The only cut I have never done is a circle cut. Chief Petrosky at District 68 challenged me. He said, Jenkins, you've never done a circle cut. He wanted me to cut it with me standing in the middle of it, what he wanted. But he retired before I had a chance to prove to him I could do it walking around the outside. But I louvered, and then I discovered dicing. Here's the deal. When you cut a big hole, a 4x4 hole out here on the prop, it's not hard to louver. It's not hard to open up. But when you start getting to a big hole, 8x5, I had somebody, normally when guys tell me precise measurements, they're louvering because our rafters normally fall either on 16 or 2-foot centers. But to louver, what I found out, louvering, if you make a top cut, and let me qualify that real quick, there's 2 times you don't have to make a top cut. If it's a functioning ridge vent, if you see smoke coming out of the ridge vent, you don't have to make a top cut. The decking doesn't go to the ridge board. It'll save you a whole 8 or 9 foot cut. You can go straight to your down cuts. But let me caution about something. I know that is a fact, and I've been on roofs and when I pull up on the truck, I look at condition. I say, well, that fire's already made its way into the attic. I got smoke coming out of soffits, and damn, it's got a ridge vent. We can save a cut. And I get up on the roof and it's no smoke coming out of the ridge vent. Those ridge vents are made out of plastic. And I watched one day as I was walking down the ridge going where I was going to cut my hole. I watched it literally melt in and seal itself off. So if you see it and suddenly you don't see it, believe what you saw. So you can save that cut. If it's truss, there's no ridge board. There's no ridge board on a truss. You know, the ridge isn't the strongest place on a truss. I'm not real sure where the strongest place is, maybe being on the ground. But if I go to the ridge of a truss, I'm gonna, as I walk down that ridge, I'm gonna spread my legs and walk on the decking about a foot off of the ridge. You don't want to walk right on the very center, because that's right to the weakest spot, because you're literally walking on the edge of the decking. So there's two times. Trusses, you don't have to make a top cut, and functioning ridge vent, you don't have to make a top cut. Other than that, you make your top cut. I like to make it right about where my ridge cap, about 6 inches off the center. I don't know why, that's just where I like to make it. Okay, so we cut out, I set my roof ladder, depending on wind, crosswind, whatever. I set my roof ladder, I cut from the roof ladder out about 9 foot. I cut 9 foot because I dice. If you louver, it wouldn't make, you're either gonna cut 8 or you're gonna cut 10. You're gonna cut to a rafter. I used to louver. Okay, let me explain what happened. Okay, I make my top cut, and as I'm making my top cut, I'm identifying my rafters. When I first plunge my saw in, if I don't find a rafter right away, I'm gonna back up to a rafter, then I'm gonna cut, okay, that's one. That's where I'm gonna come to stop. I find a rafter, I come over it. I never rolled much. I gauged the depth of the bar of my chain and taught my guys to try to do that. It sped up the process as opposed to rolling over every rafter. But if you had a guy that didn't gauge very well, sometimes you cut through your rafters. So when louvering, you gotta be precise. You have to remember where your rafters are. And so here, here's what we had problems with. Okay, say we're cutting and we identify we got a rafter here, we got a rafter here. We pretty much, you figure out there like on 2 foot centers, 16-inch centers. And you come over here and you start cutting down. You cut down and then you're going to come over about halfway between the next one and cut down, and something happens. Your clean out man, he's trying to get ahead of you and he wants you to make a bottom cut or something. And what would happen to us, not all the time, but sometimes, especially in zero visibility, we would lose track of our rafters, of our cadence for our space. And here's what would happen. Okay, we had to come back and start and identify, and my saw man, it would paralyze, not long, but for me on a roof, it's all about time. I need to get on the roof, get it cut, get it opened up, punch through, get off. And it was causing, it made me uncomfortable with the speed. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to have to try to identify. It didn't happen all the time. You know, if we had good visibility, hell, you can see. Now, I've watched training videos where guys pull their saws out. Have y'all seen that? Cut, hit a rafter, pull the saw out, and he makes a mark. Comes over here, y'all didn't see that? I laugh. Hey, them training videos, that ain't the real world, motor scooter, because you do that shit, you're only going to see it like 1 out of 10 times. So what happened was, and I don't even remember when it happened, probably about 15 years ago, our holes had to keep getting bigger. We weren't solving the problem with the holes we used to cut. So we kept cutting bigger and bigger holes, and we outpaced the way we used to do it. We changed, we started louvering. Then we started having problems. And I don't remember, maybe it was an accident. For me, it was probably an accident. And somebody said, oh, hell, that's what they call dicing. But here's what dicing is. You don't worry about rafters. You cut. When I hit the end of my 9 foot mark, my my saw man turns down, he cuts down about 5 foot. Sometimes, depending on the saw, the echo vent saw, it's about 4 foot. What I don't want my saw man to do is I don't want him to, whenever they're cutting, I want them to reach as high as they can. And when they cut, I want them to start here, stop. I don't want this follow through. I can't protect this area back here. I have his bottle. And here's the other thing about it. I found out that cleaning out a 6 foot hole is, you can't, we were having trouble cleaning the hole out. 6 foot, 5 foot's okay. 6 foot, it ended up somebody had to move back around the other side of the hole to get it cleaned out. And so with the steel 461 vent saw and the Husqvarna, most of our down cuts, our average firefighter strokes about 5 foot. If we end up with an echo, I don't like circular saws mainly because so few guys know to stop the friggin' blade before they come up and start moving around. Blade keeps turning. We've had some horrible situations. Good saw, but you better have an experienced guy operating it. So on dicing, all we do is we come with our down cut. You pick your saw up, you come over about 1 foot, no more than about 14 inches, and cut down again. If you straddle a rafter, come off right or left. And so all you're doing is you're just cutting the crap out of this roof. So you cut down, you cut down, you cut down, you just keep it. But you know what? You don't have to make a bottom cut. The pieces are so small, you're either gonna knock them in, you're gonna pull them back, fold them back on themselves. You don't have to make a bottom cut. So I got questioned a lot of times, well, man, you're cutting more than we are when we louver. So I did it numerous different ways, and no doubt, I mean, dicing I probably cut, I don't remember, an average of 30 more feet. Maybe it's 25, I don't remember. But I don't have to make a bottom cut. And here's the thing about dicing. I can dice with my eyes closed. I can't mess up dicing. I can take, you and me have never worked together. You could hop on my ladder truck first day of your life, come en route to the fire. I can explain to you what we're gonna do. It's not technical. I'm gonna tell you, don't take your finger off the mother friggin' trigger. Once you start cutting, don't let it idle down. And I got you, and you're gonna come cut. As long as that saw's cutting good, we're gonna cut the crap out of it. Some of them are gonna fall in on their own. You're gonna be between. So here's what I gotta caution. If that chief calls you to cut a hole and say, don't open up, you better louver. Then you go back to louvering, because you can only control, I can't control dicing. Some of it's gonna open up on its own. But hands down, it sped up. I've had other departments come and we taught them how to dice. And then some of them are up around y'all's neck of the woods. And then they go around and teach other departments how to dice. And one captain at this other department up y'all's neck of the woods sent me a video of just that situation. He had a young guy walk in first day of his life, and right off the bat, these guys make a working fire. And they did an awesome friggin' job of dicing. I wish I could take credit for it. But he was able, en route, a guy he'd never worked with, explain what they were gonna do and how they were gonna do it. But it's 6 of one, half a dozen another as to which one. But to cut a big hole, you have to either louver or dice. I haven't seen anybody consistently cut a big hole and pull it. The other problem with pulling it, man, you know, shiplap pulling, not a bad deal. Every time you pull one board, it carries all the way across. You have leverage. As it starts coming, you know, they come off kind of like fish scales. OSB, it's crap to begin with. You're going to tear it apart. But plywood, it's like a shock absorber. You ever notice that? You try to pull plywood, it bends. You know, you're pulling. If this is all a piece of plywood and all my nails, and I'm trying to pull it, it bends. I apply 100 pounds of pressure. I'm bragging, but I apply 100. It only allows 50 to go to the nails. And so, where like say shiplap, I apply 100. 100 goes to the nails, and the more I gain on it, the more goes. I got leverage. Plywood, maybe it's just me, and nobody else ever cussed plywood. I did, especially in the old days when all I used was a pickhead axe. I hated plywood. Now that I learned how good a flathead axe backwards is, it's not so much, but trying to pull it to open it up, I found that it was problematic. And the other thing about pulling, it means to open up, you have got to be below the fire or below the hole. It eliminates, and most time I like my clean out man to be on the other side of the ridge. To pull, that puts me down below the hole, and pulling, if suddenly and unexpectedly it gives way, remember what I said about gravity always winning? Yeah. I've never ever seen a firefighter fall off a roof and levitate. Float. Well, I had the same firefighter at a station, fell off 2 fires in a row. 2 fires in a row he fell off. And here, let me talk about this, because y'all can go back and tell those guys that don't know. But what has been happening, these guys will throw a ladder against a roof. Now, how many people do y'all take in Pearland up to a roof?
Crews of 3 and 1 guy stays on the ladder. So 2 actually go on the roof.
Oh, so 1 guy stays on the ladder? Okay. Anybody else take 3? Just Houston? In the old days, we only took 2. I don't know where 3 came in. I don't know. 2 was very effective. In the old days, we split our crews. 2 always 4 splinter inside doing search, 2 on the roof going in to pull ceiling after they got the hole cut. But back about in the 90s, 3 became mandatory. I don't get it. But anyway, I live with it. It works. But on the ladders, what I noticed happening is somebody foots the ladder for the captain to go up. Somebody foots the ladder for the next man to go up. Those 2 people get on the roof and then they head for the ridge. So the last guy goes up, nobody's footing the ladder. You can do that, but you have to know how to mount off of the ladder onto the roof. What I always do is I always step 1 rung higher than the edge of the roof and let gravity pull me to the roof. But what these guys are doing is they step directly lateral at the same level as the roof, and then they push. They're trying to push their body on the roof off of the ladder that's not footed, and the ladder goes, and gravity wins. We drilled on this very thing at Station 24 one Sunday morning, and that afternoon my medic crew made a AC guy on a 3-story apartment. He laddered the apartment, went to go to the roof, had his ladder on gutters. He didn't make it. He should have been on our class that morning. You have to know, if you don't have somebody footing the ladder, you have to know how to get off of it. You can't push laterally. There's nothing to hold it in place. Now, you can if you physically pull that ladder to you and you're conscious about what you're trying to do. But you have to be aware. But this one man in Houston, 2 in a row before, said, hey, we got a problem, man. We need to address this. You can't keep bouncing off the ground, tearing up our saws. Okay, oh, hey, this is 1/4 inch decking. I don't know if you see that, millimeter. 1/4 inch. One of our guys that fell in, this is what the entire roof was decked with. It's called Luan. It is only made for furniture, dresser drawer bottoms and dresser drawer backs. I made a fire, big daycare center. The entire building was decked with this stuff. I don't even know how you stand on it long enough to get the shingles attached. But the firefighter 82s, that's what he stepped on and went through, but they didn't sound the roof. If they just sounded the roof, they might have got an early enough warning to keep him from going in. Can you play the next one? Did that explain the question about dicing and louvering?
Yes.
Does anybody have a question about that? Flat roofs. Now this is where I cut inspection holes. My experience, doesn't mean it's everybody's, but flat roofs, there is absolutely, I bet you there is a dozen or more different ways you can build that roof. You can make it cheaper, faster, but it's never safer for firefighters. You know how long it took me to get that writing to go on there? It wasn't easy, I guarantee you. This is some stuff came off of a motel that 26's made. It's a fiber board. They keep inventing quicker ways. I've cut flat roofs that had 2-inch gyprock. I've cut them that had light concrete, literally nothing more than tin and plywood. We just made that fatality fire on Griggs. I went up on that roof and it was like 3/8 plywood mopped with tar, rolled with tar paper, mopped with more tar. That was it. I could take my Halligan with little effort and punch completely through it. So there's no way to know from the ground what you're dealing with. 46ers just went out there and drilled at Sterling High School when they were tearing it down. Some of that flat roof was a foot thick because the school probably 60 years old. Every time it leaked, they just came and put more stuff. And so if you were to get on that roof, and let me just talk about inspection holes. Here's what I want to do when I hold that one there. I want to talk about this if I can. Inspection holes. When I get on a commercial flat roof that I'm concerned about, I'm gonna, as soon as I get off the ladder, I'm gonna cut an inspection hole, and I'm gonna reach in there. I'm gonna try to reach in there and find out what kind of material I'm dealing with. What's my decking? How thick is it? It may very well be. And what I try to do on commercial is upgrade all of my tools, take more and bigger tools. But it may very well be that what I've got on the roof isn't going to be enough. I would have never been ready for Sterling High School. I've never gone to a roof planning on cutting a foot thick stuff. I haven't ever. So by making an inspection hole and identifying, I can figure out which way my structural members are running and what kind of material I'm dealing with. Kind of give me an idea of what I need. I'd rather decide here than walk out in the middle of this motor scooter and then find out what I've got's not enough. But now, not long ago, I found out that you can't be guaranteed when you reach under there and your structural members run this direction. It's no guarantee. I had a flat roof on a 4-story that we identified it so well what we were dealing with here. And when we got out in the middle of this motor scooter, started cutting, they kept alternating the way their ceiling joists, their roof joists, rafters ran. They would run this way, and then I guess they'd come to a wall and they'd run that way. So it kind of threw us off a little bit. We thought we were good. I made one not long ago that literally, it was like trying to cut through an asphalt road. And in fact, I got to tell this story real quick. I had made 5 commercial roofs in a row. This has been back years. 5 in a row that I cut with no problem. So what happens? You start to get cocky. I don't know about y'all. I start to get cocky. And so I read the stuff about taking and pulling your gravel back and scoring your tar and getting underneath it and pulling it up. I read all that stuff, and I told my guys, I said, oh, hell no. Man, I just cut 5 hey, we used the Echo vent saw, chainsaw, cut through the rocks, cut through the sheet metal. Never used a chain again, but it worked great. One cut. Didn't have to cut, pull, and then get my K12 or my 14-inch in there to cut again. So I had a real good outcome, 5 in a row, and got cocky. And then I went up on a roof to teach a vent class in the middle of July. God humbled me. That motor scooter was like an asphalt driveway. In between groups, they don't rotate the instructor, they rotate groups. Let them go down, put ice water on them, cold packs. I was trying to find vent pipes to get behind the shadow just for shade. But that thing kicked our butts. And what I found out is, and I often badmouth books because a lot of stuff is written by guys who never done it. But whoever wrote that book that I read years ago, he must have been on that roof. Because that's exactly what we had to do. It was so much tar and gravel, years of tar and gravel, tar and gravel, tar and gravel. The only way we could do it, you had to take an axe and you had to chop through your tar. Say we chopped this way, And then we took an 8-foot New York hook and we got down where the decking was and rammed it in against the tar, the bottom side of the tar, put pressure on it and got guys to go along the length with axes and chop through the tar. And then we had to, it was a booger friggin' bear before we could then get to the plywood that then we could cut with the saw. Hey, if it had been a working fire, no vertical ventilation possible. It wore us out. I wouldn't say I would do that on every fire because most of them aren't that bad. But still, if you can get a inspection hole early and identify what you're dealing with, it'll save you a lot of difficulty once you get committed to where you're going to establish your hole. You see this smoke coming through here? Do y'all see the smoke coming through the shingles? That is not a sign that don't go to that roof. That just happens to be, that could be in a corner of a piece of plywood. I'm glad I got you over there. I can wear myself out. This is not a bad sign, but a lot of those would be a bad sign. You can imagine if I've got stuff like this coming, like here, different spots, it may be that my decking may be a shiplap, have a seam every 5.5, 6 inches. But what happens is when you have fire in this attic, it's gonna find a weak spot at a corner, at a seam somewhere, and you'll start to get smoke showing through. At a corner or a seam's not a big concern. But if I've got smoke coming all over where this table is, that's a concern and should be. It should be, because that means that decking is starting to burn through. It's starting to be compromised in order to get smoke all the way through. Let me tell you a little bit, this fire right here, we drilled, oh, and I gotta talk to y'all about surviving flashovers, don't I? I haven't talked to y'all yet about surviving flashover. Talked about defogging your mask. Captain Kelly, don't let me get out of here without talking about it. We drilled 2 weeks before this fire happened on how to survive a flashover. My captain got caught in a flashover in this house. He survived because he covered his mask up. His mask melted about 10 seconds in, about 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch. We had positive pressure air packs. Air kept going. He fell through a back wall, fell on the power lines and got shocked. It happened to be his 36th birthday. He had a bad day, but actually he had a good day. He survived the flashover because we drilled 2 weeks before on how to cover your mask. I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about it since I've already transitioned into it. Back then, Cody Schroeder in Beaumont, it was the only reason I even knew it was an option. I heard he covered his mask, survived over 2 minutes, trapped inside a flashover, severely burnt back, butt, legs. I didn't know him, certainly didn't know his name, but I heard he survived because he covered his mask. Up till then, I taught you only had 3 options: get the fire off of you, get out, or a body bag. So I heard mask and I thought, man, it's a brilliant friggin' idea. It's our friggin' most critical part of our gear and it's the weakest next to your gloves. So I started thinking, well, hell, he must have covered with his hands. So that's what I started teaching. I told you I wasn't a rocket scientist. We drilled on it 2 weeks before this fire. My captain gets caught in it, covers his mask melts where his fingers aren't over it, but he falls out. He's alive today. He's back to work. 7 weeks, had to have his hands completely grafted. Since then, I learned Cody Schroeder's name by teaching a class, talked to him on the phone to tell him if it hadn't been for his bad deal, my captain would be dead. I wasn't smart enough to know about covering your mask. So talking to Cody, he's telling me the story. That's not what he did. When he realized after he did a body slam 3 times on burglar bars in a fully involved room and realized he wasn't getting out, he laid on the floor, pushed his mask as hard as he could to in the floor, clenched his fingers. He was smarter than me. Clenched his fingers and covered his mask. He told me he still had fire coming around the left side of his mask. Clenched his fingers, protect his fingers and his hands, covered his mask with his arms. Hey, severely burnt, but went back to work alive. Before, you didn't hear about guys. They either got the fire off of you got out, or you died. So what we teach now after Captain Padgett's situation is to do what Cody Schroeder does as far as protecting your fingers, but you can throw your mask, throw your arm over your mask, and you can still move. If you can try to save yourself, but you got to protect your fingers. But your mask, if you do it with your bunker coat, your arm will pretty much cover your mask. So that's how so much of our stuff has come about. It's come about because of near-death experiences. Any questions about that? I want to talk about nozzles, but I really don't. I want to because the correct nozzle in a flashover is critical to the survival. The wrong nozzle, nobody that believes in it has been able to give me an answer yet. Somebody stop me, because I feel my nozzle discussion coming on, I'm going to offend somebody. But I don't want to. But let me just say this. If you're caught in a flashover and your life depends on that nozzle, you better be praying to God you got enough pressure to flow high GPMs and you have a plan on what to do and how to use it. I can tell you this. I could real easy get 12 or 13 guys I fought fire with over my career in here, would have over a total of over 400 years of experience, and every one of them used the same nozzle. And that nozzle gave you options. I won't go and tell you what it's called. Grounds I may offend somebody, but it gave you options. Some of them were caught in flashovers, rollovers. One of them was backdraft, but they're alive today because they had options. Let's talk about.
Was it 3 options?
I'm sorry?
Was it 3 options?
I'm not gonna, hey, come on now. You don't want to stir up anything. I taught in community fire department, and oh my God, I could feel it. I knew I was fixing it. I'm surprised they didn't just whoop my ass after it was over with. But I'm sorry, I do. I have a few opinions. What do they call it? Opinionated? This is where, back up a little bit. Let me tell y'all. When we drilled on flashovers, I told my captain, I told my guys, this is what's going to happen. Suddenly, unexpectedly, super black smoke's going to come out of nowhere. It's exactly what Cody Schroeder said. Super black smoke's going to come out of nowhere, super hot, going to go floor to ceiling, and in seconds it's fixing to light off. You can't count to 10, it's going to light off. But I told my guys the day we drilled at 46, I said, but here's what's going to happen. In seconds, the fire comes up off the floor. That's what I told them. Comes up off the floor. And that's when you make your move. That's when you roll over and get on your back with the right nozzle or get in a corner. Or that's when you see, because unbelievably in that situation, you can see. I think Cody Schroeder's video, which is still on, I think for a short time, you can see that very thing happen. So I told my guys, this is what to expect. This is what's going to happen. When I got to my captain in the backyard with skin hanging off of him, he said, Captain, I did exactly like we drilled. The fire never got up. He never experienced the fire coming up off of him. Now think about this. Remember I told y'all I wasn't as sharp as tack. What is it technically on a flashover that lights off? It's the smoke. The fuel burns like gasoline, right? It's lighter than air, wants to go up. As it starts to be consumed, if this room was full of smoke and lit off, when it lights off, it expands, boom, everything floor to ceiling, fire. But as the smoke starts to be consumed, the fuel, it starts to come up, the fire lifts up, not much. You're still going to be burning. You're still going to think you're going to die. But it comes up, and that's when you make your move. Unbelievably, you can see table legs, like in the old days when we used to get down, turn your head sideways, look under 2 inches of airspace, knew where you were going, where the fire was. That was pre-tick. That's how we did it in the old days. And so I told him that. My captain, he said, "Captain, It didn't happen. He went to the floor like we drilled, but he had to get up and move. The fire was everywhere. This is where he was at. This is a garage. He fell into a garage, and every friggin' thing, that garage was full of crap, like a hoarder. Everything in this garage, floor to ceiling, was burning. He literally, when he fell out the back wall, he was covered in the stuffing from dolls or teddy bears or something made out of nylon. He didn't know why he's in this, that this crew opened the front garage door. He's somewhere back in there, back to the right, think he's fixing to die. But he survived. Now you got to get skin grafted. But since then I had to change, because if this room lit off, the fire's not going to come up. Out there on that apparatus floor, it may. My experience had never been with carpet or crap, you know, tile or linoleum or something. Fire would come up and give you that airspace, but no guarantee. So you better have an option. You better think about, you better plan on how you're going to survive. Pray to God it never happens. But remember what I said earlier. It's not just flashovers. Flashovers are technical. Sudden, unexpected fire events happen any number of ways. And when they happen, fire floor to ceiling, it's irrelevant of technically what you're dealing with. What's important is, what are you going to do to survive? Let me talk about reading couplings. I've got it on there. I spent a lot of time putting neat pictures and all together, but I'll already impress the hell out of my wife that I got this far in. I taught a class for new officers. I made a slide presentation, 186 slides. They were betting money on how far I would get in. The farthest I've ever got is slide 4. I told you I had some opinions. Read couplings. Houston Fire Department, IFSTA, a lot of people teach smooth bump to the pump. Sounds neat. It rhymes. It'd be the start of a nursery rhyme or the start of a rap song. When the difference between living and dying is as little as 10 seconds, you can't afford to make a bad decision. Remember when we talked about sudden unexpected fire events, you're covered up floor to ceiling, your mask is fixing to melt off your face. You know about covering it up. But what about that where you don't have the nozzle or the right nozzle in your hand? I already talked to you all about this, but you see, I did think about you motor scooters. I made a slide presentation about defogging your mask. So what about those times whenever you can't get fire off of you, and the survival is going to be get out? You get out and you find the line. You don't know which way is out. I know that y'all are all smart enough to know if you hold your breath and listen, you may hear an engine running out and know that that's the direction. You may hear a fan running. Hopefully it's not the reason that you're in the middle of a catastrophic fire event, but it could be. Or you may hear bottles. There may be something. You may have an exit locating device. But if you don't know how to get out and you find a hose, here's the sad thing. Because our academy teaches it. You find a hose and you're going down the hose. Now, I'll just tell you real quick, one thing I teach is if you find the hose, and granted, we would all be on the ground, right? Standing up in a sudden catastrophic fire event is not good unless you're standing up long enough to bail out a window. But you're going along this line, and you find the line, and you reach out as far as you can. Most of us can cover every bit of 6 feet. You don't find a coupling. You know to take that hose and pick it up as high as you can, drop it, and try to listen. And I know if it's here, I had a captain say, well, Captain, it won't always work. No, it won't always work, but what about the time it would work? So say you hear it hit, and you go to it, and you hit the coupling. The clock started ticking. Remember the 10 seconds? 10 seconds, your mask melts off your face. The minute that fire got on you, the clock was ticking. So you find the hose, you find the coupling, you hit the coupling, and then you know what happens with young guys whenever I get them in a situation like that doing blackout drills? They're paralyzed. They're trying to remember the rhyme, smooth bump, bump to the pump. I watch them take their gloved hands, they hit the coupling, and then they're trying to feel bump, bump. I asked yesterday, I asked the other day at 31s, I can always find somebody at a station, every station, that will tell me in order to read a coupling with smooth bump, bump to the pump, you have got to feel bump, bump. Oh, you did good. Did you do that on purpose?
I figured it was coming up somewhere.
That's awesome. No, here you go. Smooth bump, bump to the pump. I have every bit of a 50% failure rate on this method. 2 years after they're out of the academy, you know what they tell me? Bump, bump to the pump. They totally forget the only part of that nursery rhyme that has any credibility or any useful. The bump, bump is irrelevant. It's the smooth. If you're trying to get out, you better be praying to God you hit a smooth coupling. I won't even tell you it's a female, it's irrelevant. You have got to, when you're in a life or death situation and living or dying is dependent on you making the right decision 100% of the time the rest of your career, you should be able to feel with a gloved hand and instantly know if you're going out. When I tell guys, man, if I come along this coupling and I hit rough, I hit them lugs, which is an absolute no doubt about it, it's lugs. I don't feel for 2 lugs or 1 lug. If I hit a lug, that tells me I'm going toward the nozzle. I'm going toward the fire. I'm praying to God. I'm just going to say it. Me, if I'm covered up in fire and I hit the male cup, I hit a lug, I'm praying to God there is a fog nozzle attached to this motor scooter. They're pumping 200 PSI on it. Because I know what I can do with that nozzle. Smooth, here's what we taught. And then some greater minds decided it wasn't cute. We taught smooth sailing, it doesn't, and rough, it's gonna get rougher. You see, rough, the male coupling means, y'all get that, rough, the male coupling, you're going toward the fire. Smooth sailing, you're going away from the fire, like you're trying to get out. It didn't sound cute. It wasn't the start to a nursery rhyme or a rap song. But let me tell you a real quick story about a Houston firefighter named Sarabia Abel. He was a rookie at Station 25. He was taught, not this, he was taught the non-popular smooth sailing. In 39 years, and of everything I know about the Houston Fire Department before that, nobody has ever been responsible for saving more people on one fire ground than Sarabia Abel. Nobody. He is now a captain. I guarantee there are guys that work with him that don't even know his story. He was a firefighter, got manpower to Station 38. He made a horrible commercial building fire one morning. 5 firefighters went in, a senior captain, a captain, 2 rookies, and Sarabia. Things went to shit. They all got knocked off the line, couldn't find their way out. But Sarabia and a rookie found a line, and they started following it. Now, part of what I'm fixing to tell y'all, I'm sure all of y'all know, but the guys you do work with that don't, make sure you pass it on. They're going down the line. The rookie keeps going. He hits a couple and never even stops. Sarabia hits a couple and instantly knows he's going out. He was taught the unpopular way. He didn't get it confused in a life or death situation. He knew he hit the couple, he felt smooth sailing, he kept going. As they kept going down, they got near the exit, and the rookie started screaming they were going the wrong way because it was getting hotter. Here's the thing I want to make sure y'all pass on. They came in the only opening in this commercial building. They opened the door and came in. Y'all realize they vented the structure. Now, sometimes we don't have an option. Sometimes it's what you got to do. But they opened a door, they came in, they vented the structure. The minute you open that door and there's pressure in here, it starts heading that direction. Well, the fire may be back in this room, but the fire's smoking heat all, they want to go up, so they come across the ceiling. They know the minute you open that door. They do. Said, hey, we're going to go here. So they go, and now they come over here. Now here's what happens. To get out that door, they have to come down. So here between the fire and the door, it may be cooler than it is near the door because the radiant heat off the fire, y'all follow me? The fire comes down. It's exactly what happened on this fire. And the rookie, if he'd have just been by himself, he would have turned around and gone another direction. But Sarabi Abel read the couple and knew they were going right, insisted, they pushed through, they popped out into a parking lot. He said he looked around, just 2 of them, 5 of them went in. He went back in and found an unconscious captain and drug him out. Went back a 3rd time and found a lost senior captain and let him out. He couldn't find a rookie. That's the Kevin Kulo fire. Sarabi Abel saved himself and 3 Houston firefighters because he read a coupling under horrible conditions, read it, and knew absolutely with no shadow of a doubt that it was leading him in the right direction. If y'all believe in the smooth bump to the pump, all I would ask is that you clarify in your brain that the bump is only there because it rhymes with pump. It has no, it gives you no indication of what direction. Once you hit smooth, keep going. You don't have to slow down and feel bump. That's what they do. They either forget the smooth totally, and in that case it's bump from either direction. You might as well flip a coin. Do I seem irritated? You know what irritates me is when people teach and preach stuff that they had never used and that they can't prove is successful. And that's what this is. Somebody dreamt it up, sounded cute, and now it's all over. Except that literally I tried to get our academy to change it, sat down and had a long meeting with an assistant chief, and I wish to hell I'd have took his bet. He told me, he said, Jenkins, he said, I'll bet you a paycheck. We have 100% success with our cadets. So they were going to keep on, and they still are. I walked out of that meeting, there were 5 cadets doing chin-ups. The first one I talked to, I said, hey, Pods, if you got to find your way out and you're reading a couple, what would you be looking for? He said, bump to the pump. Totally forgot the smooth. He was still a cadet. But 2 years out, most of them forget the smooth. Any questions? Anybody want to throw rocks at me yet? I know I've offended some motor scooters. I apologize, but I love you guys to death. And here's the deal. There is not one of my opinions based on me reading a book. Every single opinion I have is based on doing it. It means I screwed a lot of shit up in the process. But I've done it. I've worked with guys that do it. If it doesn't work, if we have a failure, I can't afford to have failures. We're in the life safety business. People every day, when we come in, y'all realize that, when you walk over to that apparatus and you reach in there and you take that other guy's gear, the second it comes off for 24 hours, if your shift's 24, for the rest of your shift, it's on you, live or die. It's on you. Do you practice? Do you train? Do you drill? Do you know your equipment tools? Do you have a plan? Do the guys around you know your plan? Hey, that reading, that bump, this happened, and I don't even try to make it happen. It happens. Y'all know that. Sometimes them lugs line up perfectly in line. On your best day, you couldn't feel with your eyes closed whether it's 1 bump or 2 bumps. Whatever you use, whatever your plan is, you need to make sure that it's successful. When we have failures, we zip them up in body bags. Let's see. How to know if your hole's big enough. Can we talk about how to know if the vent hole you got is solving the problem? Okay, I got no answers down here. These guys are all ready to go to the house, or where are y'all going after this?
Keep going, I like this.
Can I talk about how to know if you've been hose beat? Do y'all need to take a break?
Go.
You know what, that case, let's wrap this motor scooter up. I don't want y'all to think it's going to be a happy, feel-good class. It is. It should be. I hope every one of y'all leave having learned at least one thing, or at least not necessarily learn, but look at something a little bit different. I don't think for 1 minute or expect y'all to believe everything or anything I said, but at least it's there. And you're gonna say, you know, I may think about this. I may consider, maybe he had something. If I can just do one thing, defog your mask. If I can just get one guy, defog their mask, one guy to read a coupling right, one guy, that's all it takes. You know, when you take the time to teach other guys how to stay alive on the fireground, you know how that works? Sarabi Abel saved 4 people. The captain that taught him how to read a coupling wasn't even there. He was at home. So what Captain Zapata didn't realize while he was at home, because of him, 4 guys survived on a fireground. If Captain Zapata hadn't taken the time to teach Sarabi Abel, they would probably talk about that being one of our worst ever fires. You have to take the time and the energy to try to make better people better. And I mean, hey, don't any one of you young motor scooters not think you don't have something productive to add. Probably some of the best ideas I've ever had came from my young guys. Now I steal them and take full credit for them. But what I always do, I'll challenge guys. You know, so come here, show me how you do this. And all of a sudden they do something. I say, well, you got to slow down and show me again. That's not how I did it, but that's a whole lot better idea. Hey, let me tell you real quick while we're trying to find this. Let me just tell y'all, forcible entry. I've done more forcible entry in 5 years as a safety officer than I did my whole career prior to that. And my number one go-to move on residential is a home run swing with a Halligan, burying the pick in the frame and using the adz, either push down or pull up, depending on what. Residential, wood frame, home run swing. Now, I had a guy on apartment fire said, Captain, you're wrong. It's not a home run swing. He said, it's a baseball swing. So, hey, motor scooter, I'm 60 years old. When I swing, I'm going for a friggin' home run. Whatever it's called, burying that pick. Oh, my God, it turns you into a one-man forcible entry machine versus what I see so often, 3 guys, a captain and 2 firefighters, one striking, one holding, and they're trying to drive the forks through a wood frame door. It's not nearly as effective. The other thing is learn how to use a K tool if you've never done it. Man, it is hands down. When I come off on a commercial building, I always have my Halligan. When I come off on a commercial building, I always have the Halligan and the K tool. And as fast as I can get to some of them doors, boom, I'm key tool, boom, you're in through the lock. I want to get to, I guess just keep going, I'll stop you. Here, are we running out of time, Captain? Somebody? Did you just say that?
Just we're getting close. I ain't gonna ask
How much time?
20 minutes?
Oh my God. Okay.
Not so fun, is it, Jeff?
Hey, I
Not
knew
so
it.
fun, is it, Jeff?
Here's the deal. Pressure. Ventilation's all about pressure. You know, smoke that's not moving, light gray smoke, lazy. When you open a door, it doesn't come out. Maybe the air comes in. It's not a big concern, is it? It's not a big concern. Doesn't have any pressure behind it. It means there's not a lot of heat driving it. Oh yeah, play this. Talk about low paths, controlling the door. There you go. Yeah, watch this, guys. Did y'all see this? He just kicked the door open. Now, I don't have a problem with kicking the door open. Kick the door open, reach in real quick, do a search, pull it back. But look here. The line doesn't have water. None of these lines have water. Now, watch. Talk about door control and flow paths. Remember what I said about when you open the only opening you vented the structure? Can you freeze frame that a second? You're good. Hey, they opened the only opening in the structure. Y'all are aware of that, right? They opened it and they left it open. Okay, this is no different than if you cut a hole. They just vented the structure. There is absolutely, when you vent a pressurized, and you saw it didn't have a lot of pressure, but smoke came out. Remember what I said early, if you control the smoke, you control the fire. If we can keep the smoke from coming out, we're going to keep the fire from coming out. If we keep the smoke from going to another building or another room, we keep the fire from going there. They vented this structure. It's just like cutting a hole. Would anybody here cut a hole and rappel in to fight the fire? No hands? Come on. Somebody here would do it. Guys, whenever we go in a structure that's pressurized and you open the only opening in it, and by God, I've never done this opening and going in and shutting the door behind me, I've never done it. Door control, I believed in door control as far as I would pop a door, do a quick search, pull the door back too. But once I went in the door, I never in my life have ever shut a door behind me. Now, when we do this, that's a different thing. But I'm talking about when I go in with a hand line, hey, I even taught guys how to tear doors off the hinges. If a door kept shutting on my line, all of my guys knew how to tear that motor scooter off the hinges and get rid of it. But that's because always I'm planning on applying the wet stuff to the red stuff. But you notice their lines aren't charged. And so when you vent a structure, before you're applying water, and now you've got oxygen going in low and smoke coming out high, this was a nothing fire. If you could have seen back a little bit, it almost looked like a little more than a pump can fire in a back room. When they first kicked the door open, it wasn't much. Go in with a red line, you'd have been done. But they don't have water. There's a problem. Y'all never have that happen in Port Neches, do you? Where you put a fire and can't get water? Is that doesn't happen anywhere else, just in Houston? Okay, push play. Watch. Hey, there's some good firemen on this Fireground, and they were concerned early that they weren't going to get them some. Not anymore. I don't like that standing up in friggin' fire. I never found it was very productive. But did you see how quick?
How else you gonna look salty, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
How else you gonna look salty? If your helmet ain't burnt up, people are gonna think you don't know what you're doing.
You know what? Hey, no, you're right. Hey, let me tell you a quick story. The day Captain Paget the day after my captain got burned up in a flashover, I was kind of beside myself because I do everything I can to keep my guys from getting hurt. And so when I left the hospital, the burn unit, I went and either visited one-on-one or called 11 firefighters I fought fire with over the years. Some of them retired. I called them and I asked them 3 questions. I said, how many helmets have you burned up? How many masks have you melted? And what did you do to keep that from happening? 1 out of 11, and that group was 350 years of experience. 1 captain out of 11 told me he burned up a helmet and a mask and got skin grafted on a flashover. 10 guys fought fire, some of them for over 40 years, never melted a mask. Captain Merle Wood told me, he said, I did ruin some helmets over 40 years, but not on one fire. The old leather helmets, they get cracked, dry rotted, blow up. But 10 guys had fought fire thousands of fires, and never melted a mask, never destroyed a helmet. But you know the one thing they all had in common? When I said, what did you do to keep that from happening? They all, like they didn't know my purpose. Like they're thinking, yeah, we always knew Jenkins was a little weak. So we stayed low. We stayed under the fire. We stayed under the heat. We did it before hoods. We did it. Oh, now I wouldn't have been able to do it without air packs. I sucked. Those years I fought fire without air packs, I literally sucked. But hoods, even when we got the hood, man, you still stay down. You don't preheat. Don't get up in the fire. I walked in a station where I love all the guys to death, but I walked in there one morning, they were eating breakfast, and I asked the question. I said, how many of y'all have ever melted a mask? I had 8 guys raise their hand, but not raise their hand like they were ashamed. Not raise their hand like, hey, I messed up. Raise their hand like, man, I got my mask on the mantle over my fireplace. I'm Joe Badass. I burn up a mask. I got 39 years and I've never destroyed a mask, never burned up a helmet. Now I can't pull the slack for them guys I bragged about, but I've made a couple of fires. This thing about standing up, preheating, I could tell you some stories about getting to fight some good fires when them big bad tough motor scooters preheat. They don't know enough to get out of the heat, and when the water finally shows, they're going to the ambulance to get, them compresses on them. You know how it is when they leave the nozzle right there, you can't help it. Somebody got to pick it up and do it. To know if your hole is big enough, let me tell you right now, this is a great, this hole, this officer's getting off of this roof, this hole did not solve the problem. Can you hit play and then, okay, stop. You see all this smoke coming out of the soffits? Smoke can only get to the soffits all the way around via the attic. Now you can have fire burn out of a window and get into a soffit in one area or a couple areas. But when I'm talking about the perimeter of a house, when you got smoke coming out of the soffits, that's because that attic is pressurized. Here's the top part of the attic, the highest point. Fire, smoke, and heat all want to go up. Well, fire, smoke, and heat don't do this. They don't come down and push out under pressure unless they're pressurized. They want to go up. That's why we use vertical ventilation to do that, let them out. So they have a hole. I don't know if you can see it. It's not much of a hole, but it absolutely didn't solve the problem. So here's what the guys on the inside, we talked about this earlier today. This is what the guys on the inside, they hear the saw on the roof, and then all of a sudden the smoke starts to come up a little bit and then it stops. It stops because the fire is producing enough heat and enough smoke to replace what's getting out. What's getting out isn't overwhelming the fire is keeping pace with it. But now remember what I told you? Here's the bad thing about that. If you don't put the wet stuff on the red stuff, you've got oxygen coming in feeding the fire, and when the fire now grows, which it grows exponentially, then it suddenly overwhelms the hole, pushes all this to the floor. But this is whenever I cut a hole, there's 3 things I'm looking for. The first thing I know that my hole's getting big enough. Now imagine I'm dicing, so I'm literally systematically opening up a hole. See, now I feel stressed, pressure. I know I got it. Okay, so let me just, in your brain, imagine that fire that y'all have all made where you pull up and you can't see the curb. You can't see the curb, you can't see the house. A lot of times, if it's not wind driven, the reason for that is that this house is so pressurized, it is pushing smoke out of so much pressure out of these eaves, it comes down here and it lays across before it starts to come up. So imagine on this house, you can't see the curb. But you find your way, we always do, or y'all do, you always find your way, you get to the house, the truck goes to the roof, and they're gonna dice. And they dice, and when the first time they open that thing and punch through, the first place that's gonna make a difference is the farthest distance out, away from the house. It's no different than a garden hose in your thumb. If I put my thumb tight on a garden hose, my stream goes a long distance, right? As I start to pull my thumb off, the first thing it does is it shortens up. I'm still getting water all between here and there. And so the first thing whenever you open up is the farthest distance. And so what happens? Let's imagine, okay, boom, I open up again. Now you see the slab. Open up again, you see the doorstep. Open up again, you see the baseboard. Open up again, you got 3 foot. If I open up all of it, the smoke goes to the ceiling and it's out of your way, right? Whenever I open up and I relieve the pressure, this stops. If my hole's big enough, I relieve the pressure in the attic, this stops. The first thing when I'm on that roof under those conditions, I can't see the deck. I can't see the shingles under my feet, right? Y'all been there? You can't see. You don't even know. You know it's shingles from the way it feels, but you know you can't see. So you sounded, and your man's cutting, and you're opening up. And the first thing I look for is when we start opening up and we get that first roll of that smoke. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When you first open up, it's coming out fast. Literally, you sense, your vision says that smoke is coming out fast under pressure. If you could stand back and look at it, it keeps its shape and goes up away before it starts to break up. The first thing I see, now this is just me, but I see when we're opening up, and I see that smoke do that roll. I know we're getting there. And then all of a sudden you start to see the shingles show up under your feet. How come? That smoke is no longer being pushed out of that soffit and running up that roof. And so the last thing I want to look at is we open up. The last thing I do is I do a look around. And if I don't have smoke pumping out of my soffits, now you may have it isolated. Remember that. You could have still smoke coming out of the window. It looks like it's coming out of soffit. But what you won't have is this. You won't have smoke pushing out of the soffits all the way around because your hole's big enough. You relieve the pressure. So now what happened to the guys inside? Hell, the smoke's gone. Now they're just dealing with the fire and what the fire is producing right now. And we're going to put the wet stuff on the red stuff and make it go away. This hole did not solve the problem. But I had a well-meaning young guy. Now he's a chief. He cut a hole, and he was so proud of it. He sent me all the pictures. And whenever I talk about this, can't see the curb, can't see the house, I think about his series of pictures. That's exactly what they had. You couldn't even tell what was burning. And him and his guys went to the roof and they cut a hole, and they're coming off the roof, and you cannot see the roof under their feet. The column of smoke is going straight up tight. And he's proud because he cut a hole, and he sent me these pictures. And I asked him, I said, well, how'd the fire go? He said, man, we got driven out and we lost it. Remember what I told y'all earlier about why they say ventilation makes fires worse? His was the exact reason. The hole didn't solve the problem. It didn't get rid of the fuel. All it did was give a path for the oxygen to go in and overwhelm the hole they had. Your holes have got to be big enough to solve the problem. If you're cutting holes and you're getting off of roofs and you still can't see the roof under, or you're still got smoke pushing out of the soffits, your holes aren't big enough. It's the reason over the years we kept transitioning. We didn't understand why. We didn't understand why we were starting to get guys burnt more than we used to. We didn't understand why we were having such close calls. We didn't understand why the same holes that we used to, I'm going to start you up. That we didn't understand why what we used to do was no longer working. We just knew it was no longer working. We were doing the same thing, but I will say I was so fortunate to work with guys that were so aggressive. They never were satisfied with it. Man, if it didn't work, we were changing something. And so we kept cutting bigger and bigger and bigger holes. And when we cut them today, it solves the problem. Now, I've got a video on here of my captain, Paget, cutting a hole, and it's a good hole, and it makes a huge difference in the conditions. But it didn't solve all the problems. If you can try, I kind of wanted to point out why, but if I can't find it or can't get to it, that house had a different pitch roof on it. And that roof, that room, was lower than where Captain Pad, they cut a hole at the highest point at the ridge. See this? But what they had was they had heavy pressure in this lower roof, and it wasn't venting up and over fast enough. So they still were getting some return out of the soffits. Now the guy still got in and got it, but any questions? Y'all have asked some great questions and kept me kind of on track to cover stuff. Yeah, we went over that. I'm glad too. 5 minutes? No, don't be scared. Run me off. I mean, last time they regretted it. I mean, I think I got guys in trouble with their wives last time I held them so long. What haven't I covered, Cap?
What's the easiest way to remove that door you don't want there?
Oh, that you don't want there?
Yeah,
the blade of the axe, ideally. Talking about residential. If I come to this door, here's what I taught. I still would. If I come to this door and it won't open, and so often it's a victim or it's an ice box or something, here's what you don't want to do. If this is don't profile in. When you profile in, you get through this door and things go to crap and you try to come out and it gets smaller, it doesn't get bigger. Who's it? 35s. 2 guys there got skin grafted for that very reason. So whenever I get a door that I can't get through, I teach. I always carried a pickhead axe my whole career till I became a safety officer. Now I work by myself, I had to change. But I put my blade of my axe right there and just turn the handle here on residential, strips the screws right out. My axe will fall there, do it again. Literally, by that time, I got 2 choices. I can spin my axe around, do the bottom. Most of the time, I just took the door and popped it because now I've got leverage. It's clear here and here. I take the door and throw it out in the yard. I did it with storm doors too because they're horrendous about trying to keep closing. A firefighter in Sealy, Texas died because the storm door closed on his hose, and when they tried to pull it, ruptured right as the house flashed over. Well, I'm not going to really tear it up, but no good. But here, it's a real easy, literally, now that hinge is pretty high, but say right here, put it in, and then all I do, it's a one-hand operation here. Pull laterally, you got this leverage. Then your axe drops, do the same thing, boom. Then, here I could turn it around that, or just pop the whole door. Now I would use my Halligan. I have to do it a little bit different with my forks. I liked the axe. But any tool, you get in there, and now the door is out of your way, and now you've got, my God, when the victims are in there, get rid of the friggin' door. And so, even though I believe in door control now, although I've still never practiced, I've still to this day never closed the door once I went in with a hose line. But if I had trouble with the door, I don't care, I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm not gonna let this door handicap me, my guys, if we have to get out fast. So I just taught how to, commercial is not gonna be, you probably could do it with a Halligan. You may be able to do it with an axe, but commercial is always, y'all know that, always more difficult. Whole different, no matter whether we're talking about fighting it, cutting it, forcible entry, commercial always. With the exception, commercial with a K-tool, hands down, man, K-tool and a commercial door. This year I've run into 2 commercial buildings where I came off to do forcible entry with the K-tool. And literally every door I come to, if I've got just a cylinder, man, I got no problem. Take that cylinder, tap it on with my Halligan, pull it off, take my key tool, go in, open the door, go to the next one. But on one of the doors, it had a collar on it. And this is what I've always done, because my experience with the collar was that I couldn't get the K-tool on it. So I would tell somebody, I said, hey, somebody else got to get that door, go get you a saw or something, but you get that door, I'm going to do these easy ones. Well, the first strip center I made this year, one had a collar on it and one had a shield. That the lock was set back and the shield was on it. It had four bolts held it on. Well, literally, I had no takers for anybody else to step in and help. So when I got all the doors done, but the one with the shield and the collar, well, hell, it's on me. So I get one guy with a striking tool, and here's what I was trying to do. I put my adze into my Halligan on the collar, and I told him to hit it. I'm just trying to pop the collar off. In the process, oh yeah, hold that. This is the one I wanted to see. This will be the end, I promise. So I've got the adze in on the collar, and I've got a young guy with a striking tool, and I said, hit it. I'm just trying to get the collar off so I can get my K-tool on. The whole cylinder fell out of the friggin' door. And so I said, well, boy, that's lucky. I took my key tool, went in, opened the door. And so it was actually the first time in my career I tried that to get it off. It was only out of desperation because I had nobody else to step in and do it. So I went over to the shield. I took my adze and had him drive it behind it, and literally just, y'all know with that adze, man, I love that lateral movement. You get so much leverage. Stripped the bolts off, folded it down, popped the cylinder, and got in the door. So I said, damn, I got to put that in my toolbox. I'll have to try that if that ever comes up again. That fatality fire on Griggs. Make a fatality fire on Griggs. There's a strip center that tie it into a flop house. So I go to the strip center, I'm popping doors. I get to a door with a collar. Well, hell, remember earlier in the year, this worked, so I had a rescue following me. They were doing searches, I popped the doors. So I said, hey man, strike my adze. The whole freaking cylinder came out of the door again. Did you already know that? And you didn't tell me? That's keeping them secrets to yourself, Captain Kelly.
Trying to get you to come to our class.
Hey, I couldn't. I said, oh my God, how many times have I bypassed a door because it had a friggin' collar? And then it makes perfect sense when you get the K-tool on there, it doesn't take any effort to strip the cylinder out. And so literally what we're doing is just by striking it, we're just driving the cylinder out. And then I had a shield and it worked. And so since Captain Kelly doesn't pass on all his tricks to me, I had to learn the hard way. But I'm passing it on to y'all. If any of y'all have struggled like me and not known all the tricks to forcible entry, now I feel like I'm at the end of my career. I only got about 20 more years. So where are we at? Hey, what I would like for y'all to do is just watch. Is there audio?
It hasn't been working. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, y'all can imagine. There's lots of screaming and hollering and chainsaws running. No, maybe not screaming and hollering. Just watch this video, and then if any of y'all have any questions, I'll try to answer it, and then we'll wrap it up because I know everybody's got a curfew. There we go. This is real world versus those guys that have the training videos that come up with these neat little ideas that work when you can see. This is real world. But y'all know that. It loses a lot whenever you don't have audio with it. That's all right. This is why I can't imagine a crew that works together that can't tell you what their plan is. I don't know how you would ever plan on working on a roof in limited or no visibility and being able to accomplish it effectively, efficiently, and safely if everybody didn't know what each other's job was. I should be able to tell exactly what both of my guys, and they should tell what my job and what each other's, so we know what we're doing. It is kind of neat when you drill and you train and you make fires together so much. It's almost like you read each other's brains, and it doesn't take much. Like I always tell them, I'm gonna tell you, you'll know when to stop cutting, and I don't even have to verbalize it. They just know that nudge, that's good enough, and let's turn down, make our down cut. So, but there are crews out there, and I'm sure y'all have seen them. I like when a chief assigns that crew to go to the roof, cut a hole, and you know it's not gonna happen. Y'all, do y'all not have that in your department? We got it in Houston. And you watch, the minute they step off the truck, you say, hey, this ain't gonna happen. There's just a hole. It's like the walk, the action, everything about it is like, oh, hell no, I don't want any part of that roof. Versus the guy that you're trying to, he wants to beat you to the roof so he gets to cut the hole instead of you. I'd rather have guys that are ate up with it, passionate about the job, and want to do it right. Well, I think that's it. Close enough. I think the rest of this is just pumper stuff. We're here talking about truck stuff, right? Have I confused anybody? See, we talked about marginal holes several times. Did we talk about fans enough? The key with those fans, you have to have a vent hole. Now, I hear all this stuff about your vent hole can't be but half as big. Man, I've had those fans work great and have 3-4 big windows knocked out. I'm gonna use the fan. If it doesn't work, it's not gonna work. I'm gonna damn sure in the right situation try to use it. I've had great outcomes with the fan, and I would say I'm more disappointed when we don't use it than whenever guys do use it. I think there's just so much fear about what the outcome's gonna be. So for those departments that don't fully buy in, and I realize you and your, man, that's 4 guys, that's tough. But a fan, man, if you can set, if you can set a fan up, I've gone in before on the truck. We were first in 3 or 4 times one day on ladder 46, and right situation, man, we crank a fan and go in, and I mean, we go right next to the room on fire, do a search, get in there, and it's got everything going the right direction. But you got to know that you cannot crank a fan into super black pressurized smoke. You can get the video camera ready because it's going to be a good fire video. Confuse anybody on cutting holes? Dyson, Louverin? No. Rubbish hook, New York hook, Captain Kelly? Man, well, I appreciate you guys coming. I sure appreciate this coin and this shield, man. It's nice. So, I'd like to come back tomorrow.